and that we perform at the highest of levels. And so Get Real, Get Better was launched because of a sense of realness about preparing for combat, a sense of humility about how we were actually performing, and then just a desire to put something in place to get better. It's fundamentally about culture. Makes people nervous when you talk about it. Again, folks are like, the culture of the Navy is not broken. We're not saying it is, but we're just saying that it can get better. So this is fundamentally what GRGB is about. A lot of folks will talk about the complexities of it. I'm a simple guy. I like to break it down in simple terms. And so you'll hear me say this consistently. So it's grounding in Navy core values. It's applying a Get Real, Get Better mindset. It's practicing key behaviors. And then it's using problem-solving tools for specific problems. And it's kind of just a rinse repeat of all that. What I'm going to talk to you about mostly today is the GRGB mindset and leadership behaviors. And I'll just hit lightly on core values and problem-solving techniques. So Navy core values are honor, courage, and commitment. A lot of folks with a Navy background are used to someone saying, hey, what's honor, courage, and commitment mean to you? The internal embodiment of that is very important. But when you look at organizations overall and how to adjust or renovate the culture of an organization, what you realize is that core values matter if people understand what they mean and then use them as guideposts for their actions. And so I think the person in the back, I'm just going to say next slide because this is just a little bit delayed. So interestingly enough, for most people in the Navy, if I gave them a quiz when they walked in the room and said, hey, fill in the blank, Navy core values, 100%. Gave them a quiz and said, fill in the blank, what's this determined definition of each core value, wouldn't get 100%. And so values are important when we bend ourselves to meet them and when we change our actions because of what they say. And so for our Navy, core values of honor, courage, and commitment, honor being accountable for our personal and professional behavior. This is one that often gets lost. Mindful of the privilege to serve our fellow Americans. Courage being the strength to do what's right with confidence and resolution, even in the face of temptation or adversity. And then commitment you'll see manifest in the GRGB mindset. Our duty to join together as a team, what you're doing here, to improve the quality of our work, our people, and ourselves. So core values are at the foundation of this. And upon that, we add this Get Real, Get Better mindset. Next slide. And it's just a really simple mindset. You've seen it before, continuous improvement, but it's all about get real, get better, learn. Self-assess, self-correct, learn. It's this continual cycle in how you move forward and approach your life and your work. Next slide. Foundational to this, and this is one of the extra slides, is this difference between a fixed and a growth mindset. We learned some of this in looking at Microsoft and how they were able to renovate their culture. There's a person named Carol Dweck that wrote a book called Growth. It explains this difference between a fixed and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is often reflected in typical behavior where it's I know it all. There's a certain amount of pride in that, sticking to what you know, being inflexible, as opposed to a growth mindset, which as opposed to know-it-all is a learn-it-all mindset. It's a fundamentally different approach to leadership, and it's a fundamentally different approach to life. The reason I think it's so important for me, I went through a period of time where things weren't working out very well professionally, and I kind of came into this worldview, if you would, of fixed versus growth mindset. And for me, it was the most foundational change to who I was as a leader, because it changed from me having to be the person that gets up in front of a room, has to be 100% accurate, has to always be right, pivoting to a role where my job as a leader is to help a team get to the best outcome. It's a shift. It's not about me. It's about what I can do with this table or that table to be able to produce the best outcome. Because I have to be humble enough as a leader to say, I can learn from you, I can learn from you, and I can learn from you. I may not even like you. We talked earlier, so who knows that? I may not even like you, but you may have a great idea that we can use and make the team better. So this idea of moving from a fixed to a growth mindset is foundational. When it comes to self-aware, self-assess, self-correct, those types of things, next slide. This we found to be really fascinating. I'll let you see the data. It basically says that when you interview bosses and their folks that work for them, 95% of people say like, I know who I am. I am self-aware, I'm making things happen. And then you see that predominantly all their folks that follow them are like, no, you don't. And so I just use that as a moment of grounding humility to be able to say that, hey, the moment I think I've got it wired, I probably do not have it wired. And so the trick in moving beyond that is just asking yourself very deliberately, what can I do this day, week, month, or year to get better so that what I and who I think I am is actually reflected by how my people that work for me see me. All right, so we've talked about core values, we've talked about a mindset, and now we'll talk about the behaviors. Next slide. So these are the GRGB leadership behaviors. It's a little different order as we've learned to train them better. But much like I said, GRGB is values, mindset, behaviors, problem solving. This is a cycle to repeat. I went to the Naval Academy in 1998 as a 17-year-old kid to be able to go to college for 4 years, play football, and have a guaranteed job when I graduated. That's why I joined. Over the course of time, I found that I love it. I'm here because I enjoy what I do each and every day. But along that path, what happened is at one point, I raised my hand to be a flag secretary on a carrier strike group. I wanted to be an A-nav, but it was going to mess up all the fit reps. And so I said, I'll be a flag secretary. That seems kind of cool. That was the first part of a journey for me where I don't commit the number to memory, but I've been an executive or special assistant to over 12 different admirals. Never by design. Like, I hate that about mine. And so, but what it's done, people are like, isn't that horrible? And I'm like, well, in some ways, yes. I mean, look at us, we're horrible people. But in some ways, it's really good because I've gotten just the chance to watch. I've got a chance to watch meetings at a variety of different levels. It's like getting a chance to actually be an intern for Belichick or being an intern for Pete Carroll. It's getting a chance to just go around and watch great leaders do great things and not so great things. I say that because when I go to a meeting right now, this is what I look at. I look at these behaviors that I'm going to run you through. When I played football in college, I played center. And so if you can imagine a center, guards, and tackles, we would spend sometimes 10, 15, 20 minutes on one play, a zoom in of all 5 of us of, hey, Brett, you took this step a little bit too far on the outside and you started leaning a little bit, and then that resulted in this. And we would dissect every play that way to get better. You could imagine what it would be like. Think about your last staff meeting, and if all of a sudden at the end of the meeting, they're like, all right, stop, everybody go out, get some water, come back in 5 minutes, we're gonna watch the tape. And then you analyzed your meetings based off of these performance behaviors. It'd just be different, right? But it'd be very, very valuable. So here are the GRGB leadership behaviors. Number 1 is to build learning teams through trust and respect. This is the foundation. It all works together, but if your team doesn't trust, if there's not a whole lot of respect, then you're never gonna enter this learning zone that I'll talk about in a second, and it is the absolute foundation. I could talk at length about that and how we're trying to bring that alive in the Navy, but build learning teams through trust and respect. Next thing is to act transparently as a person and as a leader. Being humble enough to admit your own mistakes in front of folks, and then being humble enough to admit where the organization actually is as opposed to where you hope it is when you go to bed at night. So the first thing about that is to align on standards and goals. And so and when we say align, it doesn't mean I deploy standards and goals. It doesn't mean that I enforce standards and goals. It says I align on standards and goals, which means that we have a conversation, we agree to what's best, and we know what it is we're supposed to be doing, and we know what we're trying to achieve. Upon that, once you act transparently, align on standards and goals, it's about whether you find and embrace the red. That's based off of a term for those that have seen stoplight charts before. Green is where things are good, red is where things are bad. We are incentivized consistently to be able to just report the green to keep the boss or to keep the system off your back. And what ends up happening over the course of time is that you just aggregate risk and you aggregate risk and you add risk, and next thing you know, something bad happens. And so when you act transparently, you're honest, you know what your standards are, you know what goals you have, and then it's just to find and embrace the red. It doesn't say wallow in the red, it doesn't say love the red, it doesn't say hug the red and never let it go. What it says is embrace the red because you see it as an opportunity to get better. And if you get better before a crisis, then you know your team is learning, you know your team is giving you the information you need to hear, not the information you want to hear, and it's foundational. I would offer that if I gave everyone another piece of paper and said, list the problems in your organization, and it told you to be honest, you would have more than one, maybe even more than two. If you're a leader here and you raise your hand and said, hey, tell me what you want me to fix, I am sure that list would be more than one and more than two. And so the important thing after you've acted transparently, you've aligned on standards and goals, you've embraced the red, is just to focus on what matters most and to really have a keen sense of priorities and which problem is most important to solve, either based off of risk, near or long term, but to have a clear sense of what you're going to go after. And then once you know you have one of those problems that's high leverage, that is something you need to address, then use a deliberate problem-solving method. So often we're tempted in the same way to report the green, that the minute something goes off track, I'm going to run, swarm, report that it's fixed, and then go back. And there's just a Band-Aid on it, right? It's not really fixed, and it's going to come up again the minute you get distracted or the minute that you leave your job and someone else comes in. So you can't always pause and do deliberate problem solving on everything. And some problems that have high risk require you to act right now. But where you can, prioritize and use deliberate problem solving methods. The other thing in there is to specify ownership. It's kind of an interesting thing that I've seen a lot, is that a problem happens and then it's almost like everybody starts going and running at the problem. So if it's us at the table, it's like, well, it's Brett's problem, but you have an opinion and you have an opinion and you have an opinion, and you think that my number is wrong, you think my number is right, you don't even think I should be in charge. And what ends up happening is you just create complexity and confusion. And so as you do this, you've got to specify ownership to know who's in charge. And then if they're in charge, work through them. Don't work around them. Just be very, very deliberate about it. And so after the acting on what matters most, specifying ownership, using proven problem-solving methods is to fix or elevate barriers. So it's acknowledging that if you go through the process, we have an honest team. We know what our standards and goals are. We know we're not meeting the mark here and in a bunch of different places. And so we're going to prioritize those, and then we're going to decide who's in charge of fixing it. And then once we know who's in charge of fixing it, we're going to ask them to use deliberate problem-solving methods. And if they can't solve the problem because they've worked it hard with their team, then you say, hey, very specifically, we can't solve this problem, boss. And so if you do X, then we'll be able to do Y and get to that standard or goal. It's very clear, it's very crisp. It's amazing how many times I would be in the vice chief's office and we would have a senior leader come in and he'd say, hey, what can I do for you? I need help. Well, what do you need? I need help to do this thing. Well, what do you need for that? I need more money. Okay, have you done all these things? Not really. How much money do you need? Some. Well, what will you deliver if you get the money? Stuff. You know, and it's just really interesting to watch the nebulous, vague way that people go through this at times, and it's because they didn't do the process. So again, build a learning team, act transparently, align on standards and goals, find and embrace the red, focus on what matters most, specify who's in charge, use proven problem-solving methods, and when you can't fix the problem at your level, to fix or elevate the barrier, and then just over and over and over again. Much like Get Real, Get Better is core values, mindset, behaviors, and problem solving. Next. So 2 slides here. This one, complete rip-off from the McChrystal group. A lot of times when I start talking about teams and softer skills and trust and respect, they're like, hey, we're here to kill people and do things, and so I don't need this stuff, Midas. I'm like, this came from McChrystal and like Team of Teams and Spec Ops, and they realized when they were trying to win a variety of different conflicts that their traditional approach to leadership just wasn't working. And so they started some of this movement. So I think if it's applicable there, it's probably applicable anywhere. And so in this, oftentimes I will also talk about this idea of having psychological safety, to create the space where you can come give me something, tell me the truth, and I'm not going to respond emotionally. I'm not going to tear someone's face off, rip their head off, whatever the term is. And then once again, people are like, psychological safety, that seems like some type of weak thing, right? Where everybody's just, it's not what we're about. It is what we're about. On this slide, what you have are 2 axes. One on the bottom is psychological safety, low to high, and on the left is accountability, low to high. We have all been on teams that are in a variety of these different areas. In the bottom left, you have the apathy zone, accountability low, and psychological safety low. People are just not doing much. Everybody's just trying to get through the day. You're just trying to hide. You don't care where you're going. You just don't want your boss to yell at you. I am apathetic. In the bottom right is the comfort zone. High levels of psychological safety. Hey there, everything's okay. What are you trying to achieve? I don't know, but you're okay. Okay, so we don't know that we don't want to be in the comfort zone, or you get the anxiety zone, which happens a lot in our Navy, where the psychological safety is low and the accountability is high, and everyone's just walking on eggshells to hope they don't get in trouble and get through the day because they know their boss is going to be unhappy with them about something. And in the right, upper right is where we want to be, which is the learning zone, where team members feel a sense of shared ownership of outcomes. Errors are openly discussed so they can be corrected to drive higher performance. You have to be deliberate to be able to take a team from any one of those spots to the upper right. But once you get there, the goodness is that you learn how to do things better and your organization moves forward in a substantial way. Next slide. So this is one we came up with on our own, no trademark. But we were just kind of thinking about these traditional ways of looking at leadership. On the top is the hero leader, I solve. I think it was Adam Grant, who does a lot of culture work. He actually calls it the admiral leader, which was kind of funny. I am the admiral. I will walk into the room. I know everything. I will provide clean, crisp direction, and everyone will get better because I am the hero leader. There are times for that, without a doubt. When the bullets are flying, when the stuff's hitting the fan, you need someone that's there. But on the other side of that is the team builder. So if the hero leader says, I solve, the team builder says, we solve. So that's at the top, that's at the bottom. And then on the left is that fixed mindset that I talked about earlier. Know it all, follow orders, execute checklists, just do what I say. And on the right side is that growth mindset, learn it all, and then you think, act on principles and intent. What I would offer is that traditionally in a lot of environments, especially in the uniformed Navy portion, we reward and incentivize leaders for being in the upper left part of that box all of the time. Be a hero leader, provide crisp direction, always be in charge. And there are times that that needs to happen. But I would offer that the best leaders are folks that, depending on what their team needs, depending on the level of risk that day, depending on the type of red that they're embracing, they need to be deliberate about where they are in that box to be able to move around and build their teams towards the long-term outcomes that they need. It is art and it is a science, but it's a leader being aware of where they are in the moment and how best to be in that space. I would offer too that just because you spend some time in the bottom right doesn't mean that you're not ready to be in the upper left. And that when your team sees you as a leader moving around the space deliberately, you build more trust, you're showing them more respect, and when the time comes, they will be ready to follow you if you do have to move to that upper left and move out. All right, next slide. Let's see, how am I doing time-wise? I'm gonna go through these kind of quick. I got a couple more slides and I'll stand by for a question and answer. So this is really helpful sometimes when folks, if you go through the leadership, the GRGB process, if you go through the leadership behaviors, sometimes it's just really helpful to kind of understand, oops, there we are. If I'm in a space, what does traditional work look like? What do traditional conversations look like? And how does that compare to what a desired workplace would be if you were able to apply this GRGB principles and the GRGB leadership behaviors? So on the left is traditional, where you hide shortfalls. You assume you know what's right because you haven't aligned on what the standard or goal actually are. And you accept the status quo and emphasize progress that's in the green. So, hey, this is what we do. Emphasize the green, keep your head down, and odds are the bad stuff won't happen on our watch. The desired is to act transparently, to align on those standards and goals, and then find and embrace the red. On the left is oftentimes traditional behavior too. I struggle with this. I'll send an update to my boss. Look at the 43 things I'm doing this week. Aren't I awesome? What are the outcomes you're trying to achieve? I'm trying to do 43 things this week. So impressing with the amount of activity, fixing the issue of the day quickly to impress leadership, knowing that it's a Band-Aid or a finger in a leaking hole, and then keeping problems in the command. We cannot tell our boss about this because it will not go well for us, which is different than acting on what matters most. Using proven problem solving on those areas that you've decided are high priority, and then fixing or elevating barriers. On the left side is this element of drive a team. I struggle with this word a lot. I've heard people talk about driving things like they're driving a machine. I kind of like that. But when people start talking about driving a team, I'm like, people are not cattle. And so they are there to be led and inspired, not driven. There are times you have to drive a little bit, but when that becomes the verb with which you apply to leadership, I think there's great risk. And so being a know-it-all and accepting leadership by committee, and as we've all said, if everyone's in charge, then no one's in charge. And so on the other side of that is building learning teams, encouraging learning through trust and respect, and then specifying ownership. So it's real crisp, and this is just a really quick way you can, take this slide back, apply it to your team, apply it to your meeting, and just get done with a session or get done with a week and say, hey, if I was to plot out everything I did this week, are we on the left side or are we on the right side? And if you're on the left side, then you can maybe get to a point where you're actually self-assessing pretty well. Next. So problem solving, not my area of expertise. I do it a lot. There's a lot of work here. Our problem solving office is great, but there are basic problem solving methodologies. For those that are familiar with Lean or Lean 6, it's all very basic. Stuff like 5 whys, stuff like driver trees. There's a number of different tools that are out there, daily visual management, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to get into those today. There's resources available for you if you want to get to them. But the most important thing that I've seen in problem solving is just a consistent pursuit at getting to root cause. The neuroscience says that as people, when something bad happens, what we want to do is say, who by name is accountable? And you may be accountable, but that's not you're not the problem. You may be, sorry. But I mean, we go down to the person and we make it personal as opposed to finding the real root cause of how did we get here? Did he wake up one day and decide he wanted to be a bad American? No, he didn't. A lot of things happened that created that condition. So to be able to ask 5 whys to get down to the deep root cause of a problem beyond personal accountability is absolutely important to move forward in this way. Next. So this is what gets in the way when I talk about this stuff. And I've briefed this to the Master Chiefs in the Navy. I enjoy this slide because it kind of gets after a lot of where your brain may be at right now. Number one is, whatever the approach is, whether it's get real, get better, or some other approach to leadership that you're going to hear, that you're kind of half in, that you're kind of like, yeah, that sounds good, but I am really comfortable where I'm at, making a good living, things seem to be okay. So I like what you said, but I'm probably not going to change my behavior. That's fine, but there's a cost. The next one I would say is down that path, which is ego. Like, one of the best and dumbest things that I've done as a senior leader in the Navy is to get up and talk about this stuff, right? Because I'm an admiral. Holy cow. Like, I'm pretty good. The Navy's told me that I'm pretty good for a number of years. Why do I have to get up in front and model these behaviors and then talk to other people? My ego would allow me to say, hey, Midas, whatever. I don't need to listen to you. The Navy's decided I'm a great leader. Fixed mindset, right? And so ego can often get in the way. Listening to Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, one of the most powerful things he said is, and I'll have a podcast, I think, on the end if you're interested, is he's like, I have to resist the temptation every day to be a hero leader. Say, I'm the CEO of Microsoft. I can do whatever I want, but I've got to resist that each and every day to take my ego, set it aside, and be the leader that my organization and my team needs me to be. And then the last thing I would say is weaponizing this. If you approach this get real, get better, and you have a leader, it's amazing to watch what happens. Where you'll be like, hey, yeah, this is what we're trying to do. And someone will stand up in the crowd and say, well, if this is the case, then why is the Navy doing this? And why haven't you fixed that? And what's wrong here? And you're like, whoa, it's a big Navy. We got a lot of things to focus on, but people want to use it as a weapon. You want me to get real and get better? You get real and get better first, because it's about the number 2 thing up there, which is ego. And so for all of this, it's about that partnership, that getting together as a team to be able to share, align on standards and goals, and not make it so personal as you decide to go forward. So being half in, letting your ego rule, and then weaponizing it, demanding that someone else do something that you may not be willing to do yourself. Next slide. All right, so this is what I would say that we must do. And I say this to you because even though there's some of us in uniform here, some of us that are not, but we share a same calling, a same commitment, and that's to prepare our nation for combat, to defend our Constitution. And so I say we. I thought about changing it. It's not appropriate. This is what I would offer we must do. Whether you believe in the GRGB stuff or not, the reason you're here is to pause, to think, to assess how you're doing, and decide how the team's going to be different next year. So number one is to just check yourself. It all starts with where you are and who you are, and change starts within, and change starts with the individual person in the leadership or the followership level. The next thing to do after that is to check your team. How are they doing? Trust, respect. How are you doing in that model of high psychological safety, low psychological safety, high accountability, low accountability? Do your folks feel like they can come to you with a problem and have you listen to it, or are they scared to do it? So check your teams. Are they ready to solve hard problems? Get real about mission and performance. Are we winning? The job of the people in this room is to join together as a team and ensure our carriers are ready to go into combat. That's the end outcome. On time, on cost, make it happen. And so in every organization, when you lose sight of that ultimate target, things get muddy and things get more complex. In business, they talk about focusing on the customer. And for you guys, the customer is the commanding officer, crew, air wing that's going to take that carrier out to sea. You've checked yourself, you've checked your team, you've gotten real about your performance, and then just pick some problems. Pick some problems that you know are of high consequence, pick some problems that you know that matter. They could be things that are about operations and how you're actually performing your job. It could be a problem in your team where you recognize the communication, or you recognize that you have someone in your team that's not on board with your core values and you need to have a conversation with them. So have a sense of priorities, and when you can, determine their root cause. As I said before, don't attack symptoms or people first. If it's a personal, ethical, moral performance thing, then get there. But go after the root cause first, because that's much more important. And then make it your goal to solve problems in a lasting way. That when you go through and you fix things, that barring some unforeseen event or something that's way radical, that the fix you put in place will be lasting. And that once you put that fix in place, you have a way to assess it so that if it does start to come off track again, you can act early and before the point of crisis. And then just rinse, repeat. Go back, redo it again, back, redo it again. Get real, get better, have a sense of your core values, adopt the Navy's if you're interested. You know, apply this get real, get better, self-assess, self-correct, always learning mindset. Demonstrate these get real, get better behaviors, which really start with building a learning team, being transparent, aligning on where you are and where you're trying to go, being honest when you're not meeting the mark, have a sense of priorities, assign ownership for a problem, use proven problem-solving methods, and if you can't fix it, be honest with your boss about where you need a little bit of help. And just going through those cycles consistently, it matters. And again, this isn't my opinion. It's not Admiral Lester, Admiral Franchetti's, Admiral Gilday's opinion. It's what we've learned and what we've seen by watching the Navy, and then by looking outside the Navy to see what works best in a business setting. And with that, because of that confidence from the learning is why we've distilled it down into what you see today. Next slide. So over to you for any questions, or I can go back to my previously scheduled meetings. I've got my, they hire a coach for all the admirals. So when I get done here, I'm gonna go talk with my corporate coach for an hour about how I'm doing. So hopefully I can self-assess well. If not, I'm sure he'll do it for me. I'll leave you this slide. Oftentimes, I had a friend come to my apartment one time and she looked at my bookshelf. She reads a lot of fiction and she's like, you're a nerd. Because all my books were nonfiction leadership books. And I'm like, why would you read a story? I can watch TV for a story. And so as a person that really enjoys this stuff, my original goal when I decided to stay in the Navy was to stay in for 20 years and be a high school football coach. I really enjoy the learning aspect. I really enjoy the leadership aspect. And most of us commute. And if you haven't taken a moment during your commute to just turn on a podcast, I would encourage you to do so, because it's a way to just listen to someone have a conversation and glean some elements of life that you hadn't considered before in time that might be spent worrying about work or something else. These are some of my favorite ones. Daniel Coyle, I said Adam Grant earlier. Daniel Coyle was the one that talked about the perils of the admiral leader. There he was amazing. He talked about how do you define great culture? And what he said is having great culture isn't what a lot of people think, which is, you know, cappuccino machines and dogs in the workplace. He said it's solving hard problems alongside people that you admire. And I'm like, that's pretty good. if you can do that, it's pretty good. Brad Smith, phenomenal. And the other ones I want to talk about, Gary Ridge, a really interesting guy. He's the CEO of WD-40, and you're like, WD-40? You're like, wow, he's really good. McRaven has a great conversation about managing risk. And if you're interested and if you think your organization, either big or small, needs to kind of change its culture a little bit, Kevin Oakes is the guru of that. We had him speak at our Naval Flag Officer and SES Symposium a year and a half ago, but he gives you some pretty sound ideas about how to take your organization and renovate it, because you're rarely throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It's building on the proud traditions and processes that you have. But those are some good opportunities for learning if you're so inclined. So with that, I'll just say thanks. It's been an honor to share some of these ideas with you. I hope that just a small part of it had some merit. I hope just some small part of it will be something that you'll consider as you become a better leader, lead people in a more profound and outcome-driven way. And once again, just thank you for what you're doing. It matters. I'm a P3 NFO. My one tour at sea was on an aircraft carrier, and it's a phenomenal, it's just phenomenal to be a part of that. And so I just really respect what you guys do because I know how important it is, and I know how hard it is to make that ship do what it needs to do. So thank you. So with that, any questions for me? I think I'm doing okay, but.
Hey, Brett,
or
Jim
comments.
Downey here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being here, Admiral. Really important for the team to make connections, you know, to what we're doing in DC and understanding the level that the CNO has prioritized this work and the directorate and all the efforts that you're leading. Our scorecard right now is 16 out of 21 on time, CNO avails. So we're 16-5. Not sure we're getting the ring this year, but we're in competition. And there's some common denominators in the 5, certain ships, certain issues on certain ships. But overall, across the portfolio, again, not that honors grad, but getting close. And a lot of that is due to this long-term carriers team 1. The continuity of a team throughout the project, not handing it over. We do it differently in submarines. That's a whole other discussion, especially in SSN and surface. Non-nuclear is a little different. We are trying to leverage, we're in end of year 1, start of year 2, of trying to leverage carrier team 1 more so across our COH, as I know you're familiar with GW, and new construction. We have an unbelievable team across the CNO avails. Parochially, that's 2% of my budget, right? All the money's over here. All the operational sailors are where the folks are working. So just a basic question on what you've seen as you stood up the directorate. You know, what are you seeing as the best performance? What if you could call out a team on all the work Navy's doing or the stuff you're studying outside of Navy? You know, what are you seeing on kind of the best performers on something, you know, any key takeaways there? I got it on the characteristics. Greatly appreciate that. But anybody, you know, I know airside have driven numbers up, supply has driven numbers up, but any key takeaways there that you'd like to share?
Yeah, thank you. And I haven't been as in touch with it when I changed jobs about a year ago, so I don't get a chance to go to a lot of the meetings like I used to. One of the things that you were talking about 16-21, and I'll pivot back in the arc here in my answer, is that it was really interesting to me. The Admiral Lesher took a team out and they went and benchmarked Delta. And it was interesting. One of the things that they learned there is that they had one day a perfect day where everything was on time and it was just the best day. And the response of the team was, that's awesome. And they were celebrating themselves. And what the CEO said is, we should endeavor to have 365 perfect days every year. And so what we've seen as a best practice for the teams that do really well is to set that big, hairy, audacious goal and then get after it. And so without that, oftentimes it can just be too hard. And I don't know that 21 and 21 is possible based off of resources and all those things. And I don't know what that means to each of you in your individual shops and directorates, but setting that goal and going after it is profound. For the aviation community that had success in achieving 341 strike fighters when they were really averaging about 250 up at every given day, I'll never forget the meeting. Oftentimes in the Pentagon, and you know that you go to meetings and you're like, the movie version of this is much better. That was a really bad movie, right? And this is one of those times where the movie version could not have been any better, as the organization is becoming an excuse machine of why they can't make changes and why they can't deliver. And to watch then Secnab Spencer, just, you know, in the movie, the only person that could have played him that day was Richard Spencer. He was magnificent in holding the team accountable to the goal and then helping them get to the point where 341 wasn't just what happened, it's what happened and is what sustained. And so I think having the audacity to decide that you're going to go after something, managing the risk, because sometimes once you pick a goal, everyone's like, well, the only thing that matters is the number. No, what matters is how you get to the number. And so I think that's really effective. So thank you. Yes, please.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
Good morning. I've been trying to come up with the right way to phrase this question so it's not the combative, gotcha kind of get real, get better. But at the maintenance level, we run into the same challenges every day of not having material, not having the right people, not having the right ability to get jobs done in the time that's allotted to us. So how do we work with the rest of the organization to get real, get better at our level when we've got these systematic barriers in our day-to-day that maybe the greater Navy community isn't seeing? How do we communicate those to the highest levels where we can get the help that we need?
Yeah, I think that, and this is easy for me to say because I'm not going through the day-to-day grind that you're experiencing. And from my perspective, it's a two-part thing. And this is really, really hard because, as was just mentioned, I was the guy that put together the way forward that you'll see get provided to Congress and the press real soon about the George Washington investigations. And so there, what you see is just consistently over the course of time, people becoming very apathetic because they've just seen the same things over the longer and longer. So I think that part one is making sure that you're not emotionally attached to it too much and you can look at it very crisply. Because the emotions happen one of two ways. One is like, I've said this 4 times, no one cares, not my risk, not my problem. The other way you become emotional is that, and I've gotten this way before, where I've been so mad that I'm not getting what I want that it starts to cloud my judgment and how I approach things. So number one is to have a crisp and just very honest conversation about where you are. And then the other thing I think that's really hard to do is to just be able to set real clear, crisp standards and barriers for your performance of how far you're going to be able to go with the resources that you have. And so oftentimes what happens, I see it a lot in the Pentagon because, you know, somebody be like, hey, how much do you need for that? I need $100 million. Well, what can you do for $90 million? The same. Aha, gotcha. You know, and so it's like this almost this weird thing that happens where we over pressurize. And so I think as a leader, it's important to understand, have you done problem solving? Have you leaned out your process? Like what we found in aviation, what we've seen in shipyards is that just basic project management and workflow isn't optimized. And so people think they need 5 when they haven't really assessed the process very well, and they actually need 4. They still only have 3, but now they're only 1 away. You know what I mean? And so it's that unemotional way to look at it, and it's to take a clean look at your process and then be really crisp about what you can and cannot do to just create expectations that aren't emotional. Because oftentimes when we get pressure from someone, it causes us to cut corners and do some of those things. And sometimes just the crispness of talking like that can be very effective too, to say, I can do that, but it's going to come at the cost here. Oftentimes what I've seen and experienced is people not being masters of their own process. And so what they provide up to leadership is not precise. The real opportunity cost is not well understood. And it becomes this kind of, again, this emotional posturing thing, as opposed to, this is what I own. I've optimized everything. I've gone from outside of my organization to see if there's any way to make this better. And based off of this input, I can get to this output. And if you want me to change, I can. That level of precision I can find to be helpful. So and it is the hardest. It is the hardest thing because our organization. I don't know that there's an organization in the world that has enough money for what their leadership has signed up for, and so everybody's managing risk in some way, shape, or form. But how you do it is at the essence. So I don't know if that was completely helpful, but hopefully it was about 1% helpful. So thank you for the question. Other questions, comments? Yes, please.
This is maybe a little bit of a tag on to that with trying not to weaponize. Over the last 3 years, there's been some really good things that if you kind of look at the structural system around maintenance that I've watched us get better at, that's made this complete. And then there are some areas that feel like we're not, we're grinding away at the waterfront, but the part that we need, which is either the material or some technical allowances or some not money stuff, kind of want your thoughts on, we've been doing this for 3 years. There's this challenge with, you've got sort of headquarters DC, you've got the 4 shipyards, thousands of miles apart, makes this extra hard to have a team that works together through all those layers and all that distance. And so kind of from your perspective, which boy, I sure appreciate you being here. I think we all do. This was a really, really cool morning. What are your thoughts on, hey, where we're missing, what could we be doing better? Or, these examples of Admiral Downey and the carrier piece getting better and getting some help. There's other areas and pillars that don't seem like they're doing that. Fleet pillar, material pillar, just from the end user on the waterfront perspective. Yeah. And I might have that wrong, by the way, but just kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that it's always, I'm always, I remember the first time I looked at like NAVC and what they were really in charge of and just the number of people, 84,000 people, number of sites around the world. I was just like, holy cow. So the same thing when I came into awareness about what you guys do. I think that what we're trying to do with Get Real, Get Better through all the process is provide language that enables conversations to happen that haven't happened before. And so what I hope I provided to you at the end of the day is just some terminology so you can have conversations. Because if you can just imagine, if you can just fix 3 high consequential things every year, in 5 or 10 years, things are a lot better. And I think maintaining that strategy is important. It's been the most fascinating thing for me. We got done with Infosys a couple years ago, and we were just like, hey, just have every leader in the Navy pick 3 problems that they're going to resolve over the next year. You'd have thought I was asking me to grow my hair back or something else. I mean, it was just crazy to watch people like, what do you mean 3 priorities? It's just this interesting thing. And so I think that wherever you are, it's about adopting some of this language or whatever language gets adopted by the team so that when you're having a conversation, you've kind of gone through the process and you can talk to it. So when you need something that's more, or you need a policy change, or you need some authorities, you can just very simply say, and in a way that I think will resonate with senior leadership of, hey, this is what we came up with. We know this is our goal of what we're trying to get to. We know that we're here and we've done everything we can. And we know that it's just these 2 or 3 things. And so if you will do this or go talk to this person, then I think we'll get a little bit better. In fact, I'm confident we'll get better. 2 thoughts down that path too, if they're helpful. One is every leader has anybody here have a to-do list that you crush every day? And you're like, I had a list of 8 things. I got 9 done today. I'm pretty impressive. It's not what happens, right? Everybody's got too much stuff to do. And so oftentimes what I find happens is that people will have a problem, but they almost, and forgive me for saying it, they almost vomit the barrier at somebody. And it's like, I don't know what you want me to do with that, and all of a sudden you've given them more work to do as opposed to a precise barrier to execute. And so I think that part matters as you start to do this. So I hope that was helpful. But it really is about being crisp as you do things and having a language that enables a stronger conversation to be had. so often in space, when you're in this fixed mindset world and everything has to be perfect, it's just really hard, because the minute that you give me something, you're in essence, in some ways saying, hey boss, you're not giving me what I need. Hey, you're not creating the environment. And my response can be emotional, because it's been about my performance, not about how to make the team better. So thanks. Yeah, please. How many times did we beat Army when I was there? Can I tell you funny? I'll tell you one funny story. Not enough. I dated a girl that went to the Air Force Academy. My plebe year, she broke my heart, and then they beat me 2 years in a row. So I'm got lingering wounds for that. I was a kind of a bigger time player in high school. I got hurt when I went to Navy, didn't play very well, and didn't get a chance to play very much. Our senior year, we were 0-9 going into the Tulane game, who was 0-10. We went down to New Orleans and learned that we were the worst team in America, and we were 0-10. It was the only night in 4 years at the academy they let us spend the night, and they let us do that in New Orleans. That's a different story for a different room, but nothing bad. It was just really funny. And so when we played Army, we were winning, and we didn't know how to handle that. The coaches didn't know how to handle that, and so they empty the bench. And everybody's getting a chance to play. And so the Army starting nose guard is like, thank God I've got the backup guy. And I'm like, you don't understand. I've been mad for 4 years, and it's your fault. And so we're running plays. The coaches stop calling plays, because they're like, we don't care, we're winning. Run whatever you want. We've got punters coming in to be wide receivers. What do I do? Just run down the field. And so we call a pass play. Why? We're up 20 points. I have no idea. But the quarterback wanted to call a pass play. The coaches didn't care. We weren't a pass play. So I set. The nose guard comes in. He overextends, and I body slam him. I mean, literally like a WWE, just pow. You would think I would have handled that well. I did not. I didn't know how poorly I handled it until 2 weeks later when the coach called me in. Remember I talked about that film where you're just tackle to tackle looking at it? And you watch the pass play, you watch me set, you watch me slam the guy, and then you watch me dance out of the frame, across, and then back. So, yeah, I had no plan to connect that earlier story to that, so thank you. That was great. Yes, sir.
Working on this? Okay, here it is. Good morning, Admiral. David Dunford, Norfolk Naval Shipyard Risk Manager on the Truman project. That's going to win, I'm going to add. My question is, how do you instill a I'm not going to quit no matter what happens attitude among people that may not be there yet?
Yeah, so we go through a lot of this. My job of Navy culture is to really work on this Navy-wide. It could go on, I won't, because it's not, but I kind of know by the numbers where our people are, and really how do you build great teams, which is you're talking about when you have people that aren't all bought in, right? So I'll just offer you a couple of things. One of the things that I learned early on at a certain spot when I used to struggle with my emotional response to people was my perspective is that I have really high standards of what I want to achieve, but then I have really low expectations for people. And I had a friend of mine ask me one time, like, isn't that horrible? I'm like, it's incredibly freeing, man. And because what I realized is that in a group of 10 people, you may have 2 that are wired like you, 1 person that has your skill set. Your instinct is to go to them because you see yourself in the mirror, and not go to the other folks that need more time, energy, and attention. And then it's trying to get in and recognize, based off of your personal contact with them, what it is they need and what it is they're missing, so that you develop that personal element of making them feel included and connected to your team, so that they want to participate. It's not, especially with some of the folks I imagine that you have coming in, it's the same way with sometimes the sailors that we have. You just got people that come from a variety of different backgrounds with a variety of different levels of give a darn. But the most important thing, based off of the neuroscience and everything else, is just to understand where they are, what they need, and how to make them feel like they're included and connected. It's interesting. I'll see if I can do this and not get in trouble. So from a team perspective, we find in the Navy that teams that are highly connected have lower harmful behaviors, meaning fewer deaths by suicide, fewer just bad things that happen when that sense of connectedness is high. The neuroscience says that the part of your brain that deals with depression is the same part of your brain that embraces spirituality. I'm not talking about religion. I'm just talking about a sense of purpose, a sense of belief, a sense of belonging, that you have a sense of why it is what you're doing, what you're doing. A lot of people, when they come in, have never had that sense of connectedness to a team, to a leader, or have no idea why they're doing what they're doing other than the fact they got to have a job. And so I think that the more you can provide them a sense of purpose, help them know through trust and respect how much you value them, it gives you the best shot of taking somebody who's not inspired to work hard and get them to a point where they're becoming more than what they thought possible. It's one of the things I think is the best thing about the Navy is that the minute you sign up, we don't care where you were, what you were, we're going to help you get better. But it's hard. And especially hard when you're trying to, you want, if your team is 10 people, you want, 8 people that are like you and 2, you may have 2 people that are like you and 8 people that need extra time, energy, and effort. But I think it really is valuing them, respecting them, having expectations that match where they actually are, and then helping them feel included and connected to your team as part of some higher purpose, perhaps in the job or in life. So I don't know if that helped, but that's my best. Thanks. You're welcome. Yes, please. Oh, that's the get off the stage wave. Gotcha. Oh, no, you keep, no, that's what I got. So, hey, thanks. It was great to be with you. My name's in the global. If anybody wants to reach out and get a hold of me, the podcasts are pretty good. Thanks. Have a great session. Bye-bye. Thanks, man.
All right. We want to thank you again, Rear Admiral Midas.
Thanks, man.
One thing I can say is that I believe the whole room definitely gained a lot from that conversation. The Get Real, Get Better message is for sure, it empowers our teams to do the right thing and to push others to do more than what they do or have done in the past. So we're moving into, you guys can go ahead and start getting set up if you want to, but we're moving into our roundtable. I know a couple of you guys probably need coffee, but we want to make sure that this isn't a break. If you need to go to the restroom, you guys are adults and everything, but we also want to thank our team's audience. I didn't say good morning to you guys earlier in the day, but good morning. Thank you for being a part of what we have going on, and definitely participate in the Q&A when we get everything set up with the roundtable. If you have not registered yet, if you haven't checked in for today, make sure you do that. Do that on your next break. Just so we can account for who's here and who isn't. And for sure, okay, make sure that you are still going out and putting your name in a hat for the APQC prizes. We do have a giveaway as well as, well, 2 giveaways. One will be right before lunch, and then one will be at the end of the day. So just make sure you guys stay connected.
You're first. You're next. We're in the right order right now. Does everybody have a mic? Are you doing stick mic?
I'm doing stick mic.
Okay.
All right, we're not actually on an official break, so if you have to run out, run back in, because we have a hard stop at 10. So we want to make sure we give our roundtables the entire time and make sure we're in our seats for Vice Admiral Kaler at 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Was looking at the job for airlines for a while.
Oh.
So it's going to be something like head of digital transformation for, or no, it was emerging tech, head of emerging tech, which I think Ryan, I forgot his name, who came in and took that role.
Yeah.
It's like, it's there still. I ended up going to OSD level
which has been interesting because I have 17, 8, yeah. So that's what Ensign is at OSD, but I have 18 years Navy. So so going to OSD, like now I have to like learn to speak Army. Air Force is English, Army is not English. I don't know what they're saying most of the time. No offense. I do. Yeah. How that works. Yeah, I grunt a lot more.
I know, I'm gonna sit up here all day.
So team, for sure, this is not a break. This is not a break at this time. And if you are using your CVent app, there is not a break scheduled for this time. So if I could get you guys to, if you have a back pocket, to make sure that it gets very close to your seat, and then make it touch, and that'll be great. So that we can give respect to the round table. If we could, we probably should close the doors so that the people outside know for sure that they need to come back in.
Right. Well, you can pick whichever one you want. That's a good question. Thank you guys, I appreciate it.
It's a 9. If you, oh no, we did 6. So I'm going to give you a different one because that was one of the ones you didn't. Yeah, I got you. So I'm going to ask you, what's your number 1 travel ticket? I'm not telling anybody else.
So as our round table takes their seats, I'm going to need for everybody in the room to make sure you take yours. I'm going to turn it over to Liz Mildenstein now for a great round table. Please give them a round of applause.
Good morning. Oh, that's better. Okay. So I received a little feedback yesterday in terms of hearing me. So if at any time those corners back there or those corners back there can't hear me, raise your hand, wave at me, shout at me. I just want to make sure everyone can hear okay. I am so grateful to have gone after Admiral Midas. That was an amazing discussion about Get Real, Get Better. We were talking about GRGB last year at this event when it was still gaining some traction. So to hear how much it has matured over the last year is really impressive. So I'd like to frame our conversation today about process improvement and how as leaders you all handle that in your organizations, both government and industry. Keep some of those GRGB methodologies in the back of your brain. I know that's the Navy's term, but I know industry probably has its own methodology for doing that. So look forward to that conversation. So with that in mind and a timer that's going to hit go on that 45 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my leaders here up on the stage. So to my left, well, your right, I have Mr. Justin Meyer. He is the Executive Director for PEO Carriers. Mr. Matt Needy, the Vice President and Chief Transformation Officer for Newport News Shipbuilding, a division of HII. Mr. David Schiff, he's the Regional Engagement Principal with the National Security Innovation Network, or INSIN. Dr. Patrick O'Connell, he's our Navy's Chief Digital Transformation Officer. And Mr. Todd Balaz, a Principal Business Development Manager in Government Regions with AWS and also a NavAir alumni. Tickled to share the stage with you as a current NavAir employee. So welcome, all of you. So we're going to start today, like we did yesterday, with an icebreaker question. I've asked each human to pick a number out of the cup, which correlates with a question. Anyone want to go first?
I'll go first.
All right, what's your number?
I've got number 3.
What would the title of your autobiography be?
Driving change.
Change?
Change.
Do you want to elaborate on change?
Part of what I'm in a job I enjoy most. I've been at Newport News for 32 years, held a variety of jobs. I think they're still trying to find the job that I do the best, but I think I'm in it. I love to make things better. From a strength standpoint, I'm a maximizer and an activator. So I'm, as a Chief Transformation Officer for Newport News now for the last 9 months, I'm in the perfect job and I love what I do.
Great, thank you. Who's next? You want to go next? All right, what's your number?
Lucky number 11.
If you could pick up a new skill in an instant, what would it be?
Well, I guess considering the state of the industrial base, welding, no.
I'll hire you.
That's right. No, but I've always been fascinated with language and being able to communicate with a wider audience. So if I could just be able to just speak all languages, that'd probably be something that I would like to do as soon as I get hired on to be a welder.
All right, sir, what you got? What number?
Number 1.
What's the best? Oh, this is a deep one. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Be really good at what you do and be known to be really good at what you do.
Could you repeat that one more time?
Just be really good at what you do. Get like invested. I mean, you know, because when you graduate from college, 4 years after that, you're not going to be doing what you learned in college. So you could be moving around like every 4 years. Be really good at what you do, and be known to be really good at what you do.
Thank you. All right, you want to go next, Mr.
Sure.
Schiff?
12.
If you could meet any historical figure and choose them as your teammate, who would it be?
I think I always default to Abraham Lincoln. I think it's kind of hard to go wrong there. I would ask him how to improve the way our country is moving right now.
Great, thank you.
Hopefully, also our Navy.
And sir, you are number 17. What is your number 1 travel tip or hack?
I've been to about 90 countries now, and so I actually have a lot of them. Like, don't drink the water in India. But
I think actually, is your mic on? Could you press your button really quickly? Can you guys hear him okay? Maybe it's just me. No? Ah, I bet that's it. Now try.
Going now? Can you hear me now? It always looks bad when the digital officer can't get the digital. Hopefully you'll look over that part. I was going to say that I've been to about 90 countries, and so it's really hard to pick out the best hack. Like, you know, don't drink the water in India or eat the salad. But I think over time, the one that's probably most critical is the fact that I finally learned that normal is local, and that even though, you know, to the first order, a lot of things seem similar, with the culture, the people, the business is all kind of the way they are used to. What they think is normal isn't. For example, when I first went to Paris, they run a joint venture there between Raytheon and Thales. I was industry at the time. In a very small amount of time I was there, our secretary, who was French, you know, invited the customer down from the government, from NATO. And when I got to where I was supposed to be, it turned out it was a cruise, you know, on the Bateau Mouche, which is a, you know, kind of a dinner boat on the Seine. I thought, as American, I thought, oh gosh, I'm industry, he's government. I'll be on the front page of the news tomorrow. I'll lose my job. This is all over. And they said, well, we don't do that here. We don't care. Eat there you want. And I thought, really? You know, so the things that are so ingrained here are not in every other country. So normal is local was the point of that.
All right, so we're going to jump right into questions. There's already a great number in the app. I'm going to start with just one of the ones that so today's framing is all about process improvement. Yesterday we talked about KM, knowledge sharing. Today it's about taking that knowledge sharing and implementing it into actual process improvement. So that's really what some of our questions will focus on in the beginning, and we've got some additional questions here on the app. So keeping that GRGB piece in your mind, I would ask kind of, what's your feedback loop? What's your, how was it mentioned? Rinse and repeat, as we just heard in that previous session, with your staff, with yourself. How are you self-assessing? How are you asking for feedback? How are you encouraging that get real, get better within your own teams? And for yourself, I should say, if part of the process is self-assess.
I'll start with at Newport News. So talk at Newport News in general. One of the things that we've done with Get Real, Get Better is we've actually dedicated an entire organization to Get Real, Get Better. If you think about change and you think about what it takes to even just manage a single carrier in terms of the schedule, the operating cadence, the metrics, and everything that you're looking at, driving change across a 25,000 person organization or 4 shipyards is huge. And before, I'll say go back 2 years, we were doing that cadence maybe once a month with the president of the company around a business review. Where are we? What changes are we? What's working? What's not working? This is a full-time job. This takes dedication to change. We've got 24 ships in the yard right now. Driving that change across all 25,000 folks across all those ships and doing it at pace that we need to takes a fully dedicated set of project plans, operating room leaders embedded within the organization, keeping it real, keeping everybody honest. So I think we have a daily, weekly, monthly operating rhythm with real metrics connected to True North. That's really, we're assessing daily, weekly, monthly, both internal and with our Navy customer, with Admiral Downey and others, about where we are along that journey, and then reflecting and rinse and repeat, adjust as necessary.
So I have some, so for our digital transformation humans on the stage, so Dr. O'Connell, Mr. Balaz, what long-term improvement goals are related to digital transformation?
Can you repeat that?
I can repeat that. What long-term improvement goals are related to digital transformation?
You know, instead of just talking about digital transformation as a thing, we always talked about, and I'll use my NavAir experience. I was 36 years at NavAir. It was mission-ready aircraft on the flight line. And then we worked from there and we went backwards. So what was the organizational objective? It was not about having meetings on digital transformation. It was, how do we get mission-ready aircraft on the flight line? Then we worked backwards. Then we looked at what were the processes, what were their technologies, how did digital transformation enable that outcome? That's what we did. From an engineering perspective, we did the same thing. What do we do to speed up the capability to get something in fleet? We always talk about that. But how do we leverage technologies, not just for technology's sake and not just for digital transformation's sake? How do we actually, without skipping steps, without skipping safety, how do we actually cut the time to put something in the fleet? And then let's make it measurable. DevSecOps is a perfect example. Some people just jump into DevSecOps, forget all the technology. What are we really trying to do? And that is that capability that we're trying to deliver through the fleet and then move backwards from there. We made digital transformation a sub-bullet. We didn't make that the primary bullet.
Right now, my focus is on the shipyards. And as I look at the shipyards and I look at what I would say the technical debt, facility debt, there's actually no shortage of debt there. So when I look at them, I think it's amazing what they get done so far with what they had. It really is. But as I look at what could be true, there's some basic rules of thumb that people in the industry use. I'm an HQE, I came from industry, I'm called back industry. So I sometimes use a lot of industry examples, but it's like typically in today's world, most people try to automate 50, 60% of the back office, lesser like 30, 40% of the mid office, and then they leave the front office with the people. So it becomes a judgment and experience kind of a story as opposed to a manual effort. And so when I look at what we're trying to do right now, I'm thinking that the concept of a smart shipyard would be a good place to go, for the shipyard today, how to make them, primarily, digitally based. It doesn't mean that people go. It means that the people focus on what's matter, work off the backlog, and become the exemplar of what shipyards should be. And like a lot of things, I start with the process. There's basically 3 basic tracks for trying to transform an organization. And by the way, I agree with a bit about it's not digital for the sake of digital. You take out what do you need to do, which is productivity, it kind of becomes the North Star. How do you do it today? How could you do it? And given that how could you do it, it's typically policy, process, people, and technology. So it's sort of like a digital first transformation as opposed to just digital transformation. But in looking at what you need to do and kind of running through the process, some of those things are relatively straightforward, kind of low-hanging fruit. And so you basically put in place a 3-pronged story where you start with the big lift, which is typically technology like IT, ones and zeros. There is the what can you bring forward in time, because the price of digital is fairly cheap today. So for example, like if you don't know where your material is, or you spend a lot of time looking for it, or you spend a lot of time re-procuring it, today with RFID, IoT, and 5G, you can probably know where that is for a very small amount of money. By the way, I'm trying to do that. And so you try to pick out what you can do, and then you measure yourself by the results that you get, in the sense of it doesn't take very long to do digital. So that's sort of it.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just want to kind of build on that. And so I think one of the things that we've seen in my career of successful transition is having the end user in mind, and how is, right, not doing digital for digital's sake, right? How are we making the end user's life work better? How are we improving their process, reducing their burden, their work? When I was in the Coast Guard, in the middle of the pandemic, we decided to roll out electronic health records across the Coast Guard, right? MHS Genesis. And one of the things we did prior to the actual rollout was spend about 2 months at each of the individual clinics, kind of doing some prep work, some testing, some making sure that all their IT peripherals are up to date and ready to go. And so it was an easy transition. And during that, we had a lot of conversations with the clinicians on how this is going to make their life better, right? So we got buy-in by the end user community instead of just pushing out tools. I mean, there's 100, we could all think about 100 different times where they've just rolled out a digital tool. You've showed up, and you're like, what is this? So I think digital transformation is really about making the end users ability to do their work faster, cheaper, better, and not digital for digital's sake.
Thanks. And you can keep your mic on because the next question's for you. What are both the hardest and easiest things to improve in carrier availabilities? What made one difficult and what made the other easy? And certainly anyone can answer that question. I just thought I would start with him.
What makes it, I think too, so I was recently out at the 71 to Pia Hot Wash, which was really great as a former TR sailor myself, right? I think one of the things that I think Chris kind of brought it up was there's so much more similarities between DPIAs and RCOHs than there are between PIAs and DPIAs. And so I think one of the things that we're starting to learn and through Admiral Downey's strategic reengineering look is how are we going to use Carrier Team 1 leverage, lessons learned, and things that we're learning from DPIAs into RCOHs, right? And how are we going to get better? Because RCOHs have recently not gone as well as anyone has wanted. So how are we going to get better? I think some of the good things that we are doing well, that we've gotten better, is the planning pillar. I don't know where Aaron is in the CPA team, but so the planning pillar stuff, I mean, there's metrics all about, right, the modernization and the planning pillar, the 3-star MOA, getting things out to the left and having the ability to get that package lock ready to provide a consistent package, right, out, I think has been one thing that we've done a lot better. And there's a lot more. We got to get better at it and continuously improve, right, rinse and repeat. But I think that's one thing that we've done pretty well.
Thanks. Anyone else want to, no pressure here. Okay, I think you answered it lovely. Okay, so this is actually from Mr. Schiff. What do you believe is the most efficient way to share knowledge between private and public sector? And what do you believe is the main barrier that keeps us from being more efficient? I think from Inson's perspective, working between the Navy, the DoD, and industry partners, both traditional and non-traditional, how would you talk to that?
Yeah, so can you guys hear me? So a lot of what we do is event-driven. So we try to do some of the things you see online, like hackathons and prize challenges, ways to engage industry, usually in pursuit of a specific technology that, in your case, the Navy is looking for right now. So in some cases, it's a process improvement or a business-related improvement, but in some cases, it's technology, and a lot of folks hear about AI, and some of you have been talking about it this week, like what's the way to make AI actionable? Well, we do things where, it's like, how do we use AI to improve cybersecurity on a ship? Or, it's a lot of things about improving the way we do shaft inspections out in PSNS Bremerton. We've been talking with a lot of folks out there actually who are already working with a variety of industry partners. And what we're trying to do is make sure that if they have the funding, but they don't have the contract vehicle, we can help them find that. If they have the vehicle but not the funding, we help, look around the Navy. There's always money under the couch cushions, so to speak. So I think it's one of the interesting things about Big Navy is that it seems like we're always flush with cash and then we're always short, right? So sometimes it's because funding has been obligated to programs that are just kind of flailing. And I think one thing that we're trying to do is make sure we talk to the Navy about what is the thing that we can stop doing so that we can enable something else. But again, a lot of things are about connecting industry and the military in like an event-driven opportunity. So I was at Naval X for a few years, and a lot of what we were doing was just trying to have these conversations. You've heard a lot of the folks on stage talk about, just the language we use, being open to new things. And I remember the head of contracts, Ms. Shaver, Daz and P, was talking about, I think we have a lot of reticence as civilians in the Navy, where I came from, talking to industry. Like, oh, I'm only allowed to talk to you in certain events and at Tech Expo when everyone's watching. But Ms. Shaver had said, you are allowed to and encouraged to speak to industry except at certain parts of a contract. So it's incumbent on us to take a little bit of time each week or each month to find out what else is out there. So that's really what we are trying to enable and empower. Ensign has 12 programs that OSD funds. They're all available to you, and no matter which part of the Navy you're in.
Thanks.
Please. Just from my perspective is that Admiral Paparo and China don't really care what badges we have on, whether it's private or public. And forums like this are really helping us better network and share best practices. We had Norfolk Naval Admiral Sluck Wolfson's team over a week ago Friday, and talking about the same exact, we basically have the same exact problems that we're trying to solve. We have material challenges, we have workforce issues, trying to integrate technology in the best possible way. And I think the more that we share what we're doing in forums like this, network, not up and over and down, but at all levels, to share what we're doing and how we can do it better, I think is key. Having submarines and carriers, I can tell you that the maturity, and Admiral Downey and I've talked about this as well, the submarine Navy and Chris and NR. The submarine Navy has nothing like this on the scale of maturity. And I've got an example. Chuck Longacre, I know many of you all know, as one of our OCC leads. We actually solved a submarine issue on the deck plate through our OCC using Carrier Team 1 network, okay? So it was through that connection, those connections, public to private, that we were able to get something done and get a submarine back where it needed to be using this network right here. So I want to applaud you all for this and do everything we can to replicate that in other areas of the Navy.
I am going to turn it over to the audience. I know I had one human who had a question. I'm going to come to you, and sir, then I'll come to you next.
Okay. I have a question about your approach to leadership when you're managing change. The Navy used to have a video called The First 72 Hours, where they said the first 72 hours of a sailor's experience on a ship formed what the rest of his tour would look like for him and how he approached his job and how he executed it. And as leaders, when you go into a job as a new leader, I know the executive director for carriers has been here for 7 months. We're getting ready to have a new PEO and so forth. And I think it's also relevant to when you're trying to transform an organization or make some sort of significant changes to it. It seems to me like that first 30 or 60 days of a new leader or a leader trying to initiate transformation is also similarly critical. So what is your approach in that case when you take over something new? What do your first 30 or 60 days look like in terms of what's important to you? What are you looking to transmit to the workforce? And if you could relate it specifically to things like program management with shipbuilding and so forth, if you have any examples like that. Thank you.
So as Errol kind of mentioned, so I got here in November, took a similar approach that I did, when I transitioned to the Coast Guard or any other job is the first thing that I want to do is, right, they always say, right, you're given 2 ears and 1 mouth, right, for a reason, right? And so trying to learn the organization, right? And so that has always been my goal, is my goal here. is to learn the organization and all the key stakeholders that play into it. So understand, in my personal appearance, some of the leaders that haven't been successful that I've seen have come in and on day 1 or day 7, right, thrown down edicts, thou shalt change this, and they don't know the organization, right? And so I think the biggest thing that I've learned, I'm still trying to do here, is learn the organization, learn where I can help, learn where I can elevate and remove barriers, and that's been kind of the core principle that coming into an organization, as well as ensuring that I'm aligning and executing, right, the PEO's vision for the organization, right? Ensuring that, right, in a lot of real sense, the XO of the PEO, right? I'm the execution arm for the PEO's vision, right? And so learning to understand his mission, vision, values, and how I can help implement that across the organization. But you can't do that if you don't know the organization. So that's the biggest thing for me, is to try to understand the larger carrier network and how I can help remove barriers so we can all get better together.
Thanks. Mr. Velez?
Yeah, I would say, so I'll pull back my experience at NavAir. We did airworthiness. And so when you are in a new organization, there are some things you do not, if you are doing great at them, don't break them. Okay, don't just come in for change for change. I would say from a leadership perspective, really learn the organization, listen, but you're not the one who's going to be doing the work. I think that role of the leader should be the blocker. And really, because when you're listening to that workforce, you get to use your role, and you get to use it in that first 90 days as the new card. And you get to go into, whether it's a Pentagon or industry-based, you get to be the blocker for the workforce, who is really where the work is being done. So what you really want to do is make sure that you're not in the, hey, I have a vision, I'm going to tell everyone what it is and go quiz them and test them and everything else. It's sort of like, you guys are getting the work done. Maybe something I can do in my role can make it better for you. So what role do I play? Let the leader take the action items, and let those action items be the things that are removing blockers from the workforce.
I was going to add one thing to the basic theme here, and the fact of getting to know your organization when you first show up. Part of what I found in my experience is knowing an organization is actually knowing it top to bottom and left to right. That is, there's typically people have a tendency to focus on some particular part of it, but to get a good feel for something, like when I look at shipyards as a whole as a start, if I look at the top, one of the things that I noticed that there's a huge ecosystem sitting above shipyards that make lots of decisions. Lots of organizations can make a decision, and we've counted about 24, and they directly or indirectly touch a shipyard. Typically, it adds backlog. But if you do that to see, what's the stability of the ecosystem above it that has the ability to affect it, like, PEO carriers, can touch a shipyard because you give it a carrier, you want it back, and there's certain things you want done. Same thing for subs, N2, N6, PEO, MLB, PEO digital, all of them can touch it, and they're all on slightly different schedules. So in most organizations, try to synchronize that. The other thing is to go to the other end of the story, from top down to a bottom up, where you talk with the folks and you see what is the life, you take a look at the mission, what are the things that are most important or the critical path? What do the workers face on a day-to-day basis? How do they do their job? How do they execute it? Sometimes it's a little tricky because you have to separate Band-Aids from systemic, but when you separate the Band-Aids from systemic and you take a look at kind of the entire picture, it gives you a better path of what would move this organization the fastest. 50,000 foot leaves a lot of detail out. 2 foot leaves a lot of systemic out. A little bit of an art form to kind of balance that right there. And then from there, it becomes a matter of mapping the key processes, and not just in high-level management terms, but kind of the metrics that describe it. See where the bottlenecks are, see where you can change something, and then begin to change them in a prioritized fashion. And so it's a little bit of an art and a science, but it's as much art as it is science.
Hey, good morning. So I think it was a CEO of IBM caught headlines here within the last couple of weeks as he briefed out his quarterly report, saying that he anticipated roughly 30,000 employees, 20-ish% of his workforce within the next 5 years will be replaced by AI. And I had already stopped or significantly slowed hiring in those areas to account for that. Do we have a similar picture of what functions we now do in our business model that we can start to think about, okay, we need to slow or stop hiring in these areas that, because we're in a capacity constrained model, we can certainly use more people in different areas that AI won't affect so that we can start retraining some of those folks or again, adjusting focus over.
You're looking at me? Sadly, I guess. To some extent, there's going to be a lot of new technologies, and there's always going to be the threat of job loss. But it's also an opportunity in the fact that new jobs are going to come into existence to kind of move how we do what we do. There's generally not going to be less work. Some of the work will go faster. Some of the work will be more accurate because technology can do that. But there's always the issue of what comes next. Data science is a big field. Data analytics is a big field. And so what you used to do over here, you may become something new. So if you persist in doing something a way that's going to be outdated, well, you probably will lose your job. But if you kind of move to the future, where the future is going, there's no shortage of different jobs just to go about it differently, because you're going to want to go faster, cheaper, better. That takes energy to do that. So I think AI is an opportunity. I think for, it could be a downer for some people, but I think broadly it's going to be an upper because it creates a whole lot of new jobs that don't exist today. I think it's a balance.
Yeah, I would say the first wave is really to enable what we're doing today to go faster, more efficient. There's no lack of work. We know we got to get ships out faster. Two examples that we've done here recently at Newport News, just very basic. One above the shop floor, one on the shop floor. A lot of the folks that we are hiring and even frontline supervision haven't even lived through a submarine or a carrier life cycle. So a lot of the information and knowledge that they're sharing, we're trying to figure out through digital and other things of how to push that to them in a more insightful way. We were finding that we were losing buyers above the shop floor. And so therefore we were looking at our material, we weren't placing orders on time, we weren't getting the right things in. Buyers, we had a lot of attrition in the buying office. So how do we enable those buyers to be more efficient? We actually took 10 years of buying data, and this is where I think we could even aggregate that across the entire enterprise. Where do we supply parts that are going to use the system AI to tell us where we needed to focus today? If I had a buyer queue of 1,000 things, what's the most important thing that they could go expedite and get in and help to do that? That has improved the efficiency and on-time delivery of material already within the last 18 months by over 15%. And we've seen buyer attrition improve just based on we're making it easier for them to do their job. On the shop floor, we have the welding machines. We've actually worked with Lincoln, and we've got both productivity, an app on the foreman's phone and the general foreman's phone. They can see when people are lighting off, when they're not. They know where to direct attention, how much weld metal is being laid down each day, such that we're having productivity win-loss measures. We've gamified welding. We've seen welding in a lot of the shop areas go up by as much as 40%. So I now need less welders. So I'm better enabling the welder, taking a lesser demand. And now we're working on the quality measures of control with Lincoln of how do I have a lane assist for a welder real time into those welding applications. So just two examples.
So we have time for about one more question. I want to turn it over to the audience and make sure, does anyone else have one from here? Okay. As a communications professional, I'm going to very selfishly pick the next one because I really like it. How can you communicate the goals of Navy leadership down to the working level on a daily basis? Today was the first time I learned about the background of Get Real, Get Better. Until today, it was just a slogan. And so even for our non-GRBGB civilians on the stage, same idea, right? How are you communicating your culture down to everyone? So it's more than a tagline. It's more than a branding effort. It's really, it's the work, it's the feedback loop that you're actually looking to capture.
So I'd like to tie the last question into that one, which is a lot of the things that AI can offer us. Instead of thinking of only the threats, I think the opportunity, like you mentioned, is we get a lot of Navy guidance, right, from the CNOG down to what ComNav see, all the instructions. What if we used AI to kind of synthesize and synopsize a lot of the guidance we get that we know not everyone in the Navy is able to process on time, right? As leaders, and also the folks, you know, at the deck plates, the sailors, and folks buying everything we have. Most of them don't have time to sit there and read every instruction. Even when we say, I'd really like you to read this, at best, you're probably getting front page only. What if we used, you know, the chat GPT type of functionality, including what I think Microsoft and other companies are incorporating now, to say, you know what, as a leader, what are the top 3 things that I need to communicate from this document? And we can get that down to even planning documents. So I think there are a lot of opportunities there to both communicate faster and better. And then as leaders, hopefully, you know, it gives us more time to actually read more of the documents we need to, and quickly get through the ones that we just need to be aware of.
Great, thank you. Okay, look, I did it with 8 seconds left, Kelly. Thank you all again for today. This was a blast. I really appreciate you being open to this opportunity and spending your time with us this morning, being open to icebreaker questions, plus all the other ones that you didn't know you were going to get. So I hope you all enjoyed the experience, and I appreciate everybody for your questions, both in person and on the app. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Can you hear me? Test, test, test. Good job, Liz. All right. Can you guys hear me? Pretty well? You can hear me? Yeah? All right, so we're going on break right now. You are officially on break, but you're on break for 10 minutes. For 10 minutes. That means at 9:55, you'll be back in your seats. Get real, get better.
Yes. Back. Test. Test.
Test.
Hey, Kelly or Josh, this is Jake, a comm check. Hey, Kelly, was that you?
Com check for Teams. Com check for Teams.
This is Jake for Vice Admiral Kaler. Got you loud and clear.
Give us one moment for a comms check. We are switching audio.
Good.
Seconds, give me 5 seconds. Testing audio, testing audio.
Hey, this is Lieutenant Commander Jake Norgard for Vice Admiral Kaler. Got you loud and clear. How me?
We are testing audio in the room currently. Please hold. Testing audio, testing audio. Audio is good.
So the time. The time. The time. The time. The time. I know. The time. I don't know why they did
Audio test for room, audio test for room.
the time. The time. The time. The time. The time. Am I low? I'm low. The time. The time is now 9:54. There will be a hard start at 10 o'clock for our next speaker. So I need you in your seats by 9:55.
Could we do an audio test for Teams, please? Audio test for Teams.
No, we're trying to. All right. The time is now 9:55.
We would like to do an audio test for Teams, please. Audio test for Microsoft Teams.
Hey, Josh, if you're looking for someone to speak up loud and clear.
Okay, we can hear Teams. Thank you so much. Audio for Microsoft Teams is good.
Hey, Josh, this is Jake. We're standing by for Vice Admiral Kaler to come in. Can you give me a quick audio check? Let me know you got me audio visual.
Audio and visual is good. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm muting the boss bee in 3 minutes.
Okay. Now introducing this seat. Can you hear me now? So it's my honor to introduce Vice Admiral Kaler, Director for Strategy, Plans, and Policy, Joint Staff, was a previous CO on the CVN 69 during her FY13 DPIA. He was also traveled all over the world as a pilot, but also in his current job on the Joint Staff. He is going to help us understand a little bit more of the importance of delivering our ships back to the Navy on time. He will be able to see us and you him. So be very conscious of what you're doing at your table. He was going to be here in person, but had some emergent things that stopped him from coming down here, but is so excited to join us. So let's give him a warm welcome as he joins us here on Teams.
Hey everybody, thanks. I'll just look real quick, make sure you can hear me. If I can get a thumbs up from the audience or from a couple hands up to make sure you got me. Okay, there they are. All right. Hey, first of all, thanks for the introduction. The other thing I would say is I'm more than disappointed that I'm not there. Thank goodness for Skype, and as we work through COVID and all those type things, we got used to Skype. There's nothing better than being in person. And that was the plan. And I really apologize. So Kelly Souders, if you're there, thanks for the invite. And I apologize and I owe you one. And I'll get down there for the next meeting. I'm committed to the CT1 piece, the whole team, the way this stuff works. Somebody reminded me today that now I sit in this position as the senior surface aviator nuke in the Navy, which is a little bizarre. It feels like I just got going on that. But I really appreciate this forum. I appreciate the work that CT1 does. And hence I really, really wanted to be there. So enough apologies. I can't be there as I go meet with an Indian delegation here in an hour and work through all those things that what the Joint Staff has me do. So anyway, I really, really appreciate you letting me come and talk to you today. So a couple things, as mentioned, I'll talk a little bit about how the carriers are important. You all know that, you hear it all the time, but I'll try to give you a couple little anecdotes here and how it relates to the strategy and all those type things. That'll, of course, get to everything that we all work on all the time, which is predictable on-time completion, which enables us to schedule then and send these implements of national power all over the world, which they are. So we'll talk about that. And then I'd be remiss if I wasn't talking to carrier teammates from all levels and all portions of the maintenance community, and just give a little bit of what I've learned on maintenance, and it won't be to patronize you, but it's just good stuff to talk about. So that's kind of where we are. So probably overused, but if there's anything our business of naval warfare and readiness, it's that carrier maintenance. It's a wicked problem, and that's why we have this Carrier Team 1 piece. It is so complex from a maintenance standpoint, from an operation standpoint. I think we all know that aircraft carriers are without a doubt the best and most complex weapon system that we have. And so when you work through all the maintenance piece with competing priorities, the consequences of every decision at every level, trying to keep all of these things aligned makes this a difficult problem. So huge fan of Carrier Team 1, if I've talked about. The ask, improve, share motto continues to be something that I know within the room here you all are working on, and the fact that these forums continue to meet brings everybody together, and certainly worthwhile. I think it's the right focus. Certainly, it's a tried and true method, and you all continue to improve every day on that to continue to yield the high return on investment that we need. I've seen the agenda that you all are going through this annual meeting. It's impressive. It is all about the planning and all about the teamwork, and then all about the relationships that it takes to do all that. And so really the positive team dynamic that you all have and are creating in this environment will help you solve issues at the big level, down to the project level, and so thanks for that. So the strong Navy that you all are a part of starts with our capital ships. It starts with our aircraft carriers and those wonderful pieces of machinery, 100,000 tons of diplomacy that truly gives the president, the combatant commanders, the fleet commanders options, and you all are the ones that are behind that and make those things work. And so thanks for your work. I can't overstate the work that you all do and how important it is for our nation. Getting the carriers out of the yard on time ends up being the critical piece, and I'll try to get to it. Let me talk with a little bit of macro level strategic competition that we're in, national defense strategy, military strategy, and I don't want to bore you with those things, but in the end, certainly from my seat here as the director of policy and strategy for the Joint Staff, that's where I live, and I think it's kind of important. And we'll get to the where the carriers discussion here in just a second. So the first thing I'd offer writ large, you all read the papers and you all look at the news. Our security environment is more dynamic right now than it's certainly been in a long time, and our aircraft carriers play a huge role in providing stability, assurances, and options for everyone. China is our pacing challenge. It's investing in its offensive warfighting systems across all domains, aimed nominally at the heart of American maritime power and our ability to compete and be ready to fight and win should we have to, resides impeccably with the aircraft carrier. Russia, in the strategy is an acute threat, which we're certainly seeing right now as they are challenging the rules-based international order with their invasion of Ukraine, and all of those things that we work at the national level to assist our allies, partners, and Ukrainians to thwart that is buoyed up by an aircraft carrier as well in the 6th Fleet AOR. We'll talk about that. Iran, North Korea are always on the cusp. You've seen all of the attacks by the Iranians in Syria. They continue to work in Yemen. Their work against Israel and support of Hezbollah and all those things make the Middle East a very unstable place, buoyed by that desired hegemon in the Middle East. North Korea continues to rattle the sabers with impending missile launches. You've seen the amount they've done here just in 2023, which has eclipsed already more than they've done over any year in the past. And we have violent extremism that continues to ramp in Syria. It's in and about Africa, in the Horn of Africa and Somalia, and throughout parts of the world. So those national interests that are listed in the national security strategy continue to challenge the rules-based international order. And what we as the United States would say is that we seek a free and open, prosperous and secure international order. And we not only our security, but our economic viability and how that relates to security all rely on that. So so that's kind of the big picture. There's a national security strategy that the Biden administration talks about, and he basically what the president says is that we have to invest in sources and tools of American power and influence, build the strongest possible coalition of allies and partners to challenge that, and then really important is to modernize and strengthen our military so it's equipped for the era of strategic competition. And with that comes some pieces we'll talk about here, but as we talk about the build out of Ford and all that work, and now Kennedy and that continued work, that's getting to the continued modernization, and we've got to do that all while we do the maintenance, which keeps us viable. So you all know, but I'm going to reiterate it because it's really important. So you're hearing it from here and from the highest levels, that carriers remain our most flexible instrument of national power to address all of the challenges we've talked about. Without question, your teams underwrite this national power by working hard day and night to keep the cornerstone, and I would say that truthfully, of American power and influence ready to fight at any time. So here's where I get to, and you've heard it, it's the adage we've all talked about, but you're in some sort of crisis and the president asks, where are the carriers? So you're probably saying, well, is that really true? And I'd say, actually, it's not entirely true. And it's not entirely true because it's not just when there's a crisis, but it's daily. And so I spend a lot of my time at the National Security Council, which is over at the White House, at the deputies level, that then feeds data into the White House leadership system, as well as work with Office of Secretary of Defense here, and then my boss specifically with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And we brief where the carriers are and what they're doing all the time, every day. This is where they are. This is where they go. So you all know right now we have Reagan is underway on sea trials off of the coast of Yokosuka. Nimitz is underway in the Western Pacific, and Ford is in the Sixth Fleet. And so we brief that. We brief their capabilities, their combat readiness, and those things are constantly known. Those are the movable things that can be positioned directly at a moment's notice and faster than anything else. And so everybody wants to know where those things are. So it is in crisis, absolutely. Where are they? But I would just tell you, they asked that to me, and I got to know where they are, as does everyone here working that where they are every day. So what do they provide us? Well, they're the specific diplomatic instrument due to the power capability that they bring, right? They can exert influence just by being present. They deliver strategic political messages by moving. They can be used as a threat if we need to, which enables that political message. They serve to strengthen alliances just by knowing we're there. We work together with other navies. We work together with other forces. Earlier in the year, we sent the George Herbert Walker Bush from the EUCOM AOR in towards the seam of the Eastern Med, and ended up working with Israel on a large exercise, which then enabled messaging from both the United States and Israel as it relates to Iran. we finished that particular exercise with Israel, and then she was right back working things with NATO and Russia. So really, really important. They ensure negotiations can occur from a position of strength, which I think is really important when we're trying to get to crisis management or trying to diffuse that. They're an economic instrument, right? The maritime arena is the foundation of global trade. It is the lifeblood of our economy and the global economy. And crisis or conflict that affect freedom of navigation certainly have broad economic repercussions, as we see the Russian invasion of Ukraine, what that has done nominally worldwide economically. And if we had some sort of issue with PRC, I think we have an enormous economic piece. And so they're an economic interest because they do all of the deterrence that you can imagine. They're a defensive instrument. You know, they're the centerpiece of the naval forces, as you know. They show force, they deter, they engage friends and allies, provide humanitarian assistance. They bring air power to bear against any opponent. And I think really, really important to understand just how important that is in deterring conventional and unconventional attacks, coordinating combat credible power throughout any AOR, prevent the use of seas for terrorism, piracy. All those things are done with the carrier as a centerpiece of its strike group. And that's why the work we do here is so important. So let me just talk real quick about the current ops. I talked briefly about it, but you know, we've got 11 of them. They're the most survivable airfield in the world, right? So, and I would just say that it's not meant to be pejorative. It's just a truth that, you know, if you pick an airfield anywhere on the planet, you know, those GPS coordinates are known right now. So if you're going to put a weapon or degrade that ability, you know, you can plug in the coordinates and they know. These carriers, the fact that they're movable, they are the most survivable, and they allow us then to execute strategy and in campaigning and provide flexibility. So a few of the highlights, as you know, Bush just returned after all the work. She's now be ready to enter her maintenance period from all the work on the tip of the spear in the work for NATO. There was a time when we had Bush and Truman in the Mediterranean Sea responding to all the issues NATO-wise as it relates to Russia, which is on everybody's mind. She went under a NATO command for the first time ever in October as part of Neptune Strike Exercise Series, which when you talk about how NATO has to then exercise maritime control and or strike operations, it was a really good exercise to do that. So her work that she did in enabling a backstop for Russia, really, really important. And she's been replaced, you know, on time here by Ford, who's on her first and maiden full deployment. And, you know, you all sent her out on a Navy-wide deployment earlier in the year. But now as she's on her first real one, supporting Sixth Fleet and all the NATO operations, again, to back up the NATO fight and have the ability to ensure the U.S. is present should there be any expansion of the Russian malign influence and attacks into Ukraine. So that challenge of the rules-based international order held up specifically by our newest aircraft carrier as she's sailing in the Mediterranean. There's a whole lot of things that we have done with Ford as a function of your all's work to ensure that all the new systems and technologies are set up for future ships in the class. And so she will provide all of the adaptive next generation capabilities to support maritime operations that we need. And I applaud you for all that work. The Nimitz just recorded her 350,000th arrested landing. 350,000 arrested landing. That's pretty awesome. She is underway in the Indo-Pacific as she gets ready to head back home after what will be a 7-month deployment. As she's done all her work in the South China Sea, she's been able to respond to crises in and around Taiwan, and her operational persistence throughout all her whole deployment has been a deterrent and a competitor against continued Chinese malign influence and our ability to compete in the Indo-Pacific AOR. Really, really good work by her as our oldest aircraft carrier. Just since I had Ike, Ike's, the number 2 behind her. I got a little quote. She's 326,600 landings, so we're catching her. We'll see if we get that. But for all the All Right team out there and working CT1, thanks for that safety. We really appreciate it. And then, as you know, Ronald Reagan just finished an on-time maintenance out of Japan. Huge work by that. That enables her to get underway on time and enable a 1.0 presence for patrol in the Indo-Pacific, and allows Nimitz to then come back home to then work follow-on maintenance. And that's kind of all part of the OFRP piece, which is based on on-time completion, enables operational flexibility. One, it also enables us to then start maintenance and not defer maintenance for other for the next ship as they go. So when you defer maintenance, you got to catch it up later. And I'm not talking to anybody in that room who doesn't know that. You pay me now, you pay me later. And so when we have the opportunity to get her out on time, it saves everything. Okay. So back to a couple of the challenges here. So China, we have a real possibility with conflict as that builds in the coming years. We have to continue to modernize and maintain our platforms. We have to simultaneously sustain a forward posture to enable competition to deter any sort of conflict, so we don't get to the fight that nobody wants. We have to do that all by facing nominally a negligent defense growth when you compare it to inflation, and additional competing resource priorities. We have a limited talent and material pool, as you all know, with the skill set that you all have to manage amidst all our trades, nuclear work, and all that. And when you align it to a very difficult maintenance challenge and the scope and scale of any carrier maintenance, I think I got that just easy little challenge right. All these things that we've got to do. So here at the Joint Staff, and certainly as a Navy guy here, we understand that, and extending people on deployment or doing any of those things only exacerbates that. Like I said, you pay me now, you pay me later. We got to get this maintenance done. So when we look at our national military strategy, there are 2 competing things that we have to constantly work on. The first one is that I've got to continue to campaign and be forward and deter conflict. And the second thing I've got to do is I've got to modernize the force and build that out. And that's whether it's airplanes, Army requirements, new ships, all those type things. And those are constantly in a balance. And with that is what we call here strategic discipline, to make sure we make really hard decisions so that I can continue to work to modernize it. While I realize that the day-to-day operations, and if there's any delay on that will affect it. And so strategic discipline means you have to make really difficult decisions. And I would just say that we and everybody, the decision makers, wring their hands on any sort of extension or anything, because they know that the modernization efforts and the planning that you all have done as it relates to aircraft carriers are affected with any sort of piece there. So it does come back to ensuring from a shipyard perspective, the things we can control, which means if we have somebody going into a availability, that we do all the pre-planning work, we get that thing started on time, we get her out on time. Those are the things that we can control from a naval carrier team 1 perspective. The enemy does get a vote and the world gets a vote. And then those things are this massive adjustments that we have to affect schedules and all those things. So I'd ask you to just keep that in mind as we go through it, that the world does get a vote. I do think, and really happy to see that the performance to plan, the naval sustainment system and shipyard initiatives that we continue to work the transparency of those things and really identify the red are so important. And the fact that that you're all engaged in that, the get real, get better piece, aligned with all of the work you all do to get clear North Stars, to continue to drive down all these things are so important. And I think the Navy's focused on it correctly, as you know, improving productive capacity, accelerating production throughput, correctly targeting in-game execution, all those things. Reducing unplanned work, I can talk about it in my sort of shipyard comments. It's what you all work on as well, but unplanned work and growth work really can hamper us. And I get it. There is certainly growth work, and you open something up, and I got it. Unplanned work is a really difficult piece. Realizing you got to balance that with the modernization goal, but it does come back to this get real, get better culture, and making hard decisions to get where we need to get. I think Admiral Midas talked to you today about the get real, get better piece. Embracing the red, finding the problems, and really working then as a team to get after those, and reduce any sort of barriers to solve the problem at the lowest level. And when you can't solve it, you raise it up, and then we work this piece so that so we can get there. Okay, that's kind of this sort of big strategic piece. And I look forward to any sort of questions that you all have, if you have them after. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about just shipyard thoughts. So you're hearing it from a former captain who would trade places with anybody to go back down there and be a CO again. But I thought I'd bring you a couple things that both, like I said, I know Kelly Souders is in the office there. He and I worked a bunch together, and I hope there's a bunch of you that I've worked with before in the office, which again, or in the projects, which again is what's bumming me out, that I'm not there to actually see you and shake your hands. But just a couple things. One, I have a lot of shipyard experience. I was the XO on Vincent as we brought her out of Newport News and her RCOH. My one deep draft, I spent 5 of those 18 months in the BAE shipyard on Bataan. And then I took, as was mentioned at the beginning, took Ike through DPIA in 13, which had its challenges. And I would say, for those of you that are in the room that work with me, we also had a whole bunch of successes, and we got that ship out, and she performed marvelously once we got her out. So just a couple comments. One, it's all about the team. If you've served with me before, that's the way that is. It's all about the team and the project and the team that works together. And the project owns it, and it's not the captain, it's not the project manager, it's not NR, it's the whole project team owns that thing and has to work together. And the going in argument all the time, you all know it, you've heard it all the time, it's on time, ready for tasking. And you have to do that across all realms. And production has to feed testing, has to feed training. And you got to do all three. You can't sit there and go, well, I nailed production, and then, okay, testers, go knock it out. And then testing goes, well, I am feeling pretty good about that. Sorry, we canned your training, because it doesn't do any good. And again, we got to do all three of those things at the same time in synchronization. And the OFRP that we've talked about and the strategic desires that I talked about at the beginning are all a function of finishing that thing on time. And I know that's what you all work on, and that's why you're in this meeting today, or this Carry Team 1 piece over these couple days. So again, not meant to be pejorative, just to reiterate, those things are really important. We have to do that all with complete safety. And safety is a real hard thing to measure, right? You can't measure success of safety, really. What you want to say is that, well, was I safe today? Well, I don't know. I walked across the street and I didn't get hit by a car. Well, okay. Hopefully I did all the right particular safety things. It's something that you have to measure success by what doesn't happen. So what that means is that means everybody has to have a focus on safety and looking for things that could happen and then work to mitigate those things. So really, really important. And that leads into damage control, which means that all of the work that we do and the ships are designed to handle damage control. As soon as we get into maintenance, we have to affect those systems to ensure that we can get to maintain them and do those things. And so a strong understanding by the whole project team of what our limits are and what our risks are as it relates to damage control and the ability to respond is so important. I think you all know that. But really, really important. Growth and unplanned work. You know, it's all about the critical path, and then it'd be really nice if the critical path remains the critical path. So you start the Avail, and that's the critical path, and we didn't have some sort of unplanned work that just changed it. And so in that light, I would just ask you, as you're working through all the planning, please don't fill up the non-critical path work because you think that there is just, hey, there's time. We all know that Gantt chart is 5-dimensional chess. And just because hey, it's non-critical path, and so I think I have time as I can cram this thing in there. Everything has an overreaching and direct effect. The perfect example, which I'll give this to you, and if anybody on the project there in 13 and 15 was there, if you remember, we had to put the winch on the back of Ike for the array. It was like, hey, it's not going to be a big deal. We got time in the piece. All we're going to do is land this platform. It's on the fantail. It's well within the critical path piece, and so we get going on that. And then all of a sudden we went, oh crap! You know what we have to do is well, the only way we do that is we've got to move the letters. The Eisenhower, Dwight D. Eisenhower on the back, though we have to move all the name of the ship. We got to move that because now the winch is it's all messed up with that. And so, okay, well, shoot, we just, I didn't know, but man, it's not easy to just move letters. It's not just paint. So next thing you know, we're in letters. Then we got to get that all redone. Then we got to get it moved. And it ended up actually being towards the end of the Avail, there was this decision of, well, we'll just get the ship underway without her name on it, and we'll just send her out. I'm like, the hell we will, but we send a ship out. She's the Dwight D. Eisenhower, she's going to have her name on the fantail and all those things, and it ended up being almost critical path to get these letters done and do that, and it was not known or expected by anything, and so everything has this this effect on everything else, and so I just ask you. Don't fill up the critical path, make critical path the critical path, and really watch unplanned work because we're going to get growth work, and that gets back to ensuring as you're setting it up that the package project package lock is set, all the pre-avail testing is done, and again, I'm talking to the professionals out here, but I get all fired up when I start talking about maintenance, so I got to talk a little bit about it. The other thing I would say is, as you're helping out the project teams when they're getting going, is, it's all about the project, it's all about the team and the communication with the team. And so the right people got to be at the right meeting with empowered capability to make decisions. Ship's force, shipyard, contractors, naval reactors, all those things. So that's that. Okay, I'm almost done with motherhood. One, don't eat up the float. Right, the float is there because we need float, and don't just plan to eat it up. As we're going to get some sort of growth work and all that stuff at the end. You all know that. And then this is my biggest thing because I've been through 4 Christmases in the shipyard, and we always say that we're going to catch up over Christmas, and it's one, never works, and 2, completely savages those people that are trying to do that over the holidays. So you won't catch up over the Christmas holiday planning. So just plan for it. Okay. I don't have to talk to you about anymore about the project piece. You know, it's one team, one project, and everybody in the project owns it. You know, it's kind of like cleanliness. You know, if you're on the ship and anybody on the project team walks by a bunch of stuff on the deck, then nobody's involved with cleanliness. It's everybody on the project that has to keep that up so that it professionally and purposely is getting work done. So appreciate that. Okay, almost done, and then I'll open it up for any questions that you have. So as I've said throughout, you know, the relationships that you all building, one at Carrier Team 1, 2 as you're building out project teams, and then within the project teams that you are working with, it is all about the relationships and it's all about the team. You're going to solve these problems with the relationships that you build and that you know. Those things enable creativity, collaboration, trust. All those things allow you to get after hard problems. And if you know each other, you can actually kind of have a good time doing it. And that helps with your morale and all those things. The relationships that you build, both in Carrier Team 1 writ large, from project team to Carrier Team 1 help to all those things, will resolve the work stoppages. The procedurals won't, right? Ultimately, you'll resolve it at some point, but it'll be late to need. But if you need to expedite parts delivery, if you need to move some scheduling, you've got to have relationships built well enough so that you can trust each other to throw out a crazy idea and not get lambasted. So anyway, I think really important. Okay, and then I would just say a couple little teamwork nuggets that'll help you as you're all going through any sort of work. These are things that I just you know, if you're shooting the breeze with me, you end up hearing me say. One, teamwork is a graded item. So, you know, it's not about an individual's movement or an individual's success. It is about the team. And so the whole teamwork is a graded item. You know, there's 4 kinds of people, as you know, those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, those that wonder what happened, and those that keep things from happening. And, you know, you can train somebody if they're watching what's happens or they wonder what's happened. You can say, hey, man, this is where you go. If you are somebody that's keeping things from happening, those are the people you need to remove from the organization because they're against the teamwork game and they aren't the ones that are going to enable success here. Operations, General Mattis said it, operations run at the speed of trust, which gets what I talked about earlier. You know, all of us are trying to work through this piece. If you have a strong relationship and you can trust one another, you know that he or she's going to help you out and you're going to help their out, then we're going to get somewhere. And I really appreciate it. 2 last ones. One is that as I look into that room, and you're going to have to let me finish this. Don't, I hope I don't get cut off. 50% of you are below average. That's math. That's the way that works. Now, the caveat to that is it's below average at what? Right? The reason that you're in that room is that all of you are leaders and above average. But we all have strengths and weaknesses. And so you have to find within your teams who is shoring you up so that you're, hey, I'm below average in this, but I'm above average in this. I got to make sure that I'm working with the team so that we're all above average at something. Because by sheer math, we're 50% of the people are always below average in a group. It's just at what? And with something. So it's a good perspective to remember that everybody brings strengths to the table and you need everybody. And then I would just say finally on that is that for all of us, we set our example for our teammates, our peers, and our leaders every day, all the time, by both action and inaction, right? So, you know, if you tout in the line that cleanliness on a project is important, and you as whatever level walk by something that is you know, garbage or whatever, then you've just set the example by your inaction to pick it up that you're not. And so that pressure of all of us, action and inaction, sets the example is really, really important. So that's that. Okay, so finally, I think the Navy's committed to the strong improvement at all of the shipyards. It's all hands on deck. Carrier Team 1 is a leading piece that has been resident for a long time amidst all these issues that we work with Get Real, Get Better, and Perform to Plan, and all these things which are good. They are, and I'm a huge fan of all those things. And I would tout the fact that Carrier Team 1, which has been around for a long time, is a body that has shown success and can take these things head on, and fix it and continue to get better. You all are the experts in the craft, and you've got to be able to shine the spotlight on those things and those barriers that are inhibiting the ability to continue to get better. And so I'd ask you to do that. If there's a better way of accomplishing a job, a better way to handle technical discipline, a better way to get after DC, a better way to get after safety, we all, but you all, as I'm talking to you, you owe it to the Navy, you owe it to yourselves, and you owe it to the team to bring that up. So please do that. And I know that's why you're there together, working through all the Carrier Team 1 issues. The aircraft carrier is not just a weapon of war. It's a symbol of American commitment. It's a symbol of American power. I certainly thank you for the attention you've given me in my spouting of 35 minutes of work. And hopefully I didn't put you to sleep. I'm open to anything. If I've served with you in the past, thanks for serving with me. And I am so sad, one more apology, that I couldn't be there in person, because it makes such a difference to be able to interact with you. But I am happy that Kelly let me come on, at least be a VTC. So if there's any questions or comments, positive or negative, I'm ready, thick skin. Let's bring it. Thanks so much.
Admiral Kaler, Captain Johnson, PMS 312 here. Quick question for you. So as the Nimitz class starts to age out, we're going to have to make some targeted investments in potential extensions to the class, as well as buying forward maybe faster and more efficiently in order to maintain the 11 aircraft carrier fleet in the future. What's your sense from your strategic chair and all the different competing, as you said, investments that we may need to make in the near future? What's your sense in the building there that that's an investment that we're going to make? Over.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for that. That's a huge question. And it is interesting. As I sit on the joint staff, I'm not in Navy budgeting and Navy work with Admiral Gilday and Admiral Franchetti. And so I would tell you that the demand signal for the aircraft carriers, and I'm trying not to, I don't want to dodge your question. I think it's strong. What I tried to lay out is the need and desire to have aircraft carriers amidst all the debate that always is in the public of, the expense and the this and the that. There is a massive need for these ships all the time. And so I think my personal opinion is that, pending the great work by the OpNav staff and Navy budgeters and all those things, is there'll be continued work to make that viable, to get after both of those things. We know we're going to have to continue to either accelerate or buy the new Ford class. And as we look at some opportunity to extend Nimitz, Ike, depending on EFPH and all those things, those are some opportunities that will give further flexibility, for which these coming years in competition are really they're vital, and we're going to need to be able to have operational flexibility. So I think it's good. My personal opinion is, from the demand signal, it should be. There's a whole lot of budgeting that's got to happen, and that's a little bit out of my league, just where I am now, because I'm in the joint staff from a strategy side. Hopefully, I didn't mean to dance around that too much, but I think it's positive. Over. Any other questions? Not hearing anything. If there's any, let me know.
Hey, Admiral Jim Downey here, PO Aircraft Carriers. Greatly appreciate your time. You saw a lot of smiles and head nods here as you were joining us virtually. So, and greatly appreciate your work on the joint staff there. I'll do one last call here, guys. Anything else for the Admiral? And as we all recognize, he's got a really busy schedule here. Well, we're bringing a couple of your former ships in, of course, soon, and head out on sea trials on GW finally in a couple days here. So we understand the role here of generating readiness for the joint force to consume, and greatly appreciate your leadership, sir. Thank you.
Hey, Jim, thanks. And for everybody there, then, one, I really, really appreciate the invite for anybody who continues to run the Carry Team 1 in any sort of venue, and whether that be in project team meetings or what have you. If I can get down there or talk to them, I'll do it anytime. I'm committed to aircraft carriers. I love them. Blessed to command one and be part of the Carry Team 1 group. And I really appreciate everybody's leadership and commitment in that room. I really do. And it is not lost on me on how difficult all the work is. It also is not lost on me on how committed you all are. And so thanks for what you do every day. And we'll see you hopefully in person next time. I'm out here.
Thanks again. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thanks again, Vice Admiral Kaler. That was really, this is the second year in a row where we did a Teams facilitator, and it was great. The audio and video was great. So we really, appreciate how connected, one, the message was, and you were to the message. So just looking around the room, it was, just the faces was great feedback. So as we move forward, today is about process improvement, right? Leveraging knowledge to drive process improvements. And one of those process improvements are we going to do it now? Yeah, is making sure people get something free. So if I could get you right now, if you have legs and you're in this room, to stand up without hurting yourself, lean your chair back and look under the chair to see if you have a white, or is it an X?
It's an X. I don't know what color
It's an
it
X
is.
underneath your chair.
Now, if no one finds it, we're going to have to,
Yell bingo if you have it.
Oh, we got one. Tell them to come on up.
Come on down. We have a winner. Everybody else? Kelly, tell him what he's won.
So you have won your very own, the new Edge in Knowledge. And Miss Cindy Hubert, right there, will sign this for you if you want to go find her right out there. This book, make sure you read it.
Yes, I will.
Yeah. So like if you want to improve the way you share knowledge, this is the book you want to read. And by the way, I'm a little afraid to tell you this. Are you ready? When you look at our charter, you might find words that were in this book in our charter. Like we might have stole them because it's so good. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Appreciate it. You got it, Kelly.
All right, how are we doing? Are we okay? Yeah? Okay, so I only have about an hour. No, I'm just kidding. You all know, if you know me, you know my voice won't last an hour. So what do we think about our first amazing group of speakers? Can we give them all a hand again, even though they can't all hear us? That was phenomenal. I have enjoyed Admiral Midas, the roundtable, Admiral Kaler. They have all been so good and inspiring. And one thing I love about our speakers today, well, I love all our speakers, is it kind of provides a perspective that we don't hear. You know, we're so entrenched in the everyday work of getting our carriers out on time and on budget and reliable, which is what we need to focus on. But if we don't understand the why, sometimes we can get lost in what we're doing and we don't realize how what we do is actually affecting the greater picture, our security. So I love how they provided that perspective. And I love this morning's tie-in with our culture and how important it is to keep that in mind. Did anyone learn something new about Get Real, Get Better today? Yeah, and maybe like, you know, when you first hear it, how many people, I know, I doubt anyone, have ever said, oh, what's the new flavor of the month? Come on, don't lie. I've heard it from half of your mouths, okay? Because that's kind of how we're trained, you know, like, oh, there's the new flavor. What is it? But one thing I've learned in my young years here in the shipyard, 25, is there's always something behind those messages, and there's always something we can learn and grow in, personally and professionally and within our teams. And by the way, you are all leaders. And so it is your job to understand it, and it is your job to model it, and it's your job to believe in it. And so seeking to understand what it means helps you be able to do that better. So appreciate them this morning so much. So yesterday, I thought we had a great session. I really enjoyed kind of laying that foundation of how knowledge is essential to do what we do. Because without knowledge, we're just kind of going in there haphazardly, trying to figure out what we should do. I mean, everyone in here is a professional maintenance expert, right? Are you a professional? If you're a professional maintenance expert, raise your hand. If you didn't raise your hand, you might need to leave. Okay, you're all, I don't care what you do, you're all an expert in what you do, and you're all essential to maintenance. That's what CT1 is about. It's all about the different organizations coming together and tying in. That's why you're in these knowledge sharing networks. It's multiple organizations working together to make our processes work better so we're more efficient. So when I say knowledge management, what kind of words come to mind? Just shout them out and I'll kind of repeat them if I hear them. No, that one's a really good one. That was awesome. Sharing. Lessons learned, improvements. Repository. Collaboration. Tribal knowledge. What'd you say? Networking. Accessibility, is that what you said? Good. Getting better. Strategizing. Okay. Nice. Nice MC. Yeah, there's so many things. Okay, now when I say process improvement, what words come to mind? What'd you say? Strategizing. Team one. Oh, get an award for that guy. What else? Proven? Nice. Thank you, Tom. Workflows? Yes. Usefulness. Now see instructions. Path forward. Which? PPR. What sounds more fun? I want to be part of the knowledge management team or I want to be part of process improvement? Says our KMSO. I would gander, most of us love improvement. We love creativity. We love innovation. We love moving forward. We love saying, I thought of an amazing initiative that I can write on my resume, and I feel good about adding value. But the thing is, you need knowledge to do that successfully. Otherwise, your improvement is just, you know, what is it based on? Is it based on your opinion, your feeling? Unfortunately, our feelings change every day depending on where we are in life. Maybe our drive in, you know, who knows what it is. And so that's why that collective knowledge of our enterprise, of our community is essential to improve, or it's really difficult to improve wisely. Have you ever sat through an improvement that was maybe, I don't want to use the word mandated, highly encouraged in your organization that didn't make sense? Lying if you haven't. We've all done it. You might have been the one that thought of it. It's okay. You know, it happens, but that's why we need to make sure we're basing all the information on accurate data, insights, experiences all together. All right, so let's think about it in our own personal lives. Oops. Let's see. Oh, I need my clicker. Okay, thank you. So we're going to talk about something that could be near and dear to people's hearts. Anyone go through a bathroom renovation before? Nope, but that's okay. Let me get it. All right. Close your eyes. Oh, wait, close your eyes again. I don't want you to see where I'm going. Okay. Anyone go through a renovation recently? Yeah, is it fun? All right, where's Clifford? Is Cliff not in the room? Where is he? What is he doing? It is not time. Tell Clifford to come in this room, please. I tell you what. Okay, so I'm going to prep it. So he mentioned to me the other day he's renovating his bathroom. So do you think that he would go right into the bathroom and just pull out all the sinks in the toilet and the tub? Would that be a good idea? Do you think his wife would kill him? Probably. So really the question is, how do you start? There he is. How do you start, Clifford, with your renovations? Do you start with tearing everything out, or do you do some kind of pre-planning? And what did that really entail?
So let's just show all the work life of Cliff and Leslie Anderson here on remodeling a bathroom here.
Oh my goodness, get ready.
So first of all, the house is 27 years old. We were trying to figure out, all right.
Oh, Cliff Notes version too.
Yeah, so. Well, that's just a little bit of technology here. So it was, let's refresh the bathroom because the base, obviously a bathroom is a bathroom and everything else like that. So it was refresh, modernize, and everything else like that. So let's ask some other folks, have you done your bathroom remodel? What do we want to do here? And once we had a general idea after going to Ferguson Plumbing, Home Depot, Lowe's, and getting some general ideas as what do we think the budget is going to be? And then establish what could I do since I'm pretty handy, with carpentry, electrical, plumbing, and everything else like that. What did I want to do? And then just talk to the general contractor, establish the budget, establish the schedule, and then set it in motion. And it was really finding out what can we do and what do we want it to look like afterwards, and what will work for us.
So you had the goal in mind, you had a plan. You kind of did some research, had some discussions, you had some knowledge sharing with the general contractors. You set a budget.
Yep, and even helped another, we had another friend that was actually doing a bathroom remodel as well, and I got involved with that, and it was like, oh, I don't want to do that in my bathroom. So, a little bit of live and learn at the same time.
That's good, because if he didn't facilitate that sharing of knowledge with you then, and you found out about it later, it would have been too late.
Yep.
And he is out for hire if you are looking for a bathroom renovator or
Yeah, just pay my travel costs and I'm right there. It's all good.
He doesn't come cheap. Thank you very much, Cliff. So, it's just like in our work. Sometimes we forget that the things we do in our personal life can definitely be related to our work. We don't just, if there is a modernization or improvement that we're going to do on our vessels, which by the way, there are a lot, you don't just jump in and start working on it and kind of lump it in with everything else. You got to do some pre-planning. You got to do some research. You got to go through some discussions. You might need to talk to a technical warrant holder. You need to make sure security. You need to make sure your infrastructure supports it. And so there's so many things you need to do and share knowledge across the teams. That's where this network becomes so important and all the tools and platforms in place. And we have 11 aircraft carriers at different life cycles in their evolution of planning and execution that we can learn from at any given time in our environment, which is amazing. And so we need to seek that information. And one of the things we talked about yesterday when Rear Admiral Downey was talking about the requirements is, understanding the package, understanding what other availabilities are doing, some of the differences, what are the requirements is all key to making sure that you can improve effectively. And so it's not just about having the right knowledge, because that's a piece of it. It's about organizing the knowledge in a way that you can understand it or access it. So who uses Google? Probably everyone. If you don't use Google, I'm not sure what you're using. Maybe Bing? I don't know if does anyone use Bing? Oh my, I don't know how to use Bing. I might need to learn. I'm just kidding. I love it because there's all different platforms of knowledge sharing. But when you put in there how to renovate a bathroom, how many things come up? Tons. And you're like trusting that they organize it in the right way. So like we think Google is telling us the best way to do it. It's really based on algorithms of how it's doing, like the AI conversation you guys heard yesterday, but how do you know if the information is reliable? How do you know what information to choose? Well, I'm glad you asked. So that's kind of what we're really focusing on here as a community. So for process improvement to be effective, one of the ways that we do it is our knowledge sharing networks, because it has people like you, our diverse organizations all together that use the processes or own the processes, so they understand the processes, they understand the consequences of changing the processes, they understand the consequences of not using them correctly, they understand the consequences of using them correctly and the results they get from it. And so they can have an intelligent conversation based on experience, data, insights in that KSN to make sure that we are improving the processes correctly. So you have knowledge sharing, but it's also designed in a way that we can look at those analysis, those trends, and make sure we are organizing it in a proper fashion so it's easier to digest. So I'd like to bring up one of our teams. So this is our co-yard team. Gerard Robinson, Doug McPherson, and Jim Higgins, and Chuck Longacre. One of you guys can come on up. So your KSN gets a lot of project feedback. And for some reason, when they come up, I always feel like it's Academy Award, when they're coming up. Gentlemen, you have won. So I think they would love to hear about so you get a lot of feedback from focal points, proven practice replications, retrospects, hot washes. So can you talk about how maybe one of your initiatives has evolved or you're working on that the project team has identified? And I don't know where our mic went. Oh, you have one, sorry.
Thank you, Kelly. Good
You're
morning,
welcome.
Carrier Team 1. As Kelly stated, I'm Gerard Robinson. I'm the co-yard process master, and I'm out of Norfolk Naval Shipyard. Co-yard is the biggest knowledge sharing network in Carrier Team 1. Therefore, we have a full-time process master at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, Mr. Jim Higgins. Mr. Chuck Longacre was our HII full-time guy, but he's been replaced by Mr. Doug McPherson. In attendance also, we have one of our ESC members, Mr. Doug Lemon. Co-yard also has 7 subgroups: our all-ray tanks and coatings, SPI, PIC, temp services, CV and structural, and shafting, rudders, and propellers. We have 2 of our leads here, Mr. Paul Fairless over there, who is our all-ray lead, and we have Mr. James Brooks. James, where are you? Back there, he's our tanks and coatings leads out of HII. The mission for Co-Yard is to leverage communities of subject matter experts to improve aircraft carrier maintenance through knowledge sharing of improvement of deck fleet processes. So this morning you've been hearing Kelly talk about knowledge management and the different, tools of it, knowledge management, knowledge transfer. So the initiative that we're going to share with you today kind of incorporates all of that. It was ongoing for a couple years. Something after we had one of our shafting rudders and propellers face to face at the HII. The idea, Puget Sound saw some work that HII was doing and said, hey, we would like to get this over here at Puget. So I'm going to have Mr. Longacre do the background on this initiative, and Jim will bring it home. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Chuck Longacre from Newport News. So one of the great things about CoYard and all the different subgroups is the opportunity to get everybody together. We're not the subject matter experts, but the folks who lead the individual subgroups are. And so they always looking for opportunities and ideas. And so back, I guess it was 2018, I think is when we decided we were touring the main machine shop at Newport News. And Andy Donner, I think, was the subgroup lead for shaft and rudders at the time. And he saw a piece of tooling laying in one of the pits in one of the aisles that we were walking through. And he asked the general foreman, Philip Lamb at the time, hey, what is that? And he said, oh, that's our horizontal boring bar for rudder work. And he was like, oh, I want to know more about that. So subsequent conversations connected those guys. We took a bunch of pictures, measurements, and sent things back and forth to Puget, because Puget was doing that work or had gotten out of that work. So I'll let Jim fill you in on the rest of it. But it was as simple as them getting to tour a shop that wasn't their own shop and seeing something new or seeing something different. Certainly the tooling wasn't new, it was very old. But something that we were doing that we were able to share. So, you go, Jim.
Thanks, Chuck. So typically Puget Sound would contract the rudder bore machining out, and we wanted to bring that in-house, control our own destiny. So give a little more context to it. Puget started the journey for shafting and rudders. It was the long leg in the dock about 2013. So there's been a lot of iterations, improvements for shafting, improvements for rudders. But what we realized after he did this boring, got the boring bar, purchased it, and then used it, we took 99 days of duration, which is what was the previous project, and we did it in 34. So it's gains like that that have really gotten, I believe, shafting rudders out of the way of undocking. So that's it.
All right. So are there any questions? If there are any questions, CoYard is sitting over here in the corner. If you have any questions about any of our 7 subgroups or any other initiative that we're working on, please come over and ask us. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. So appreciate that, and absolutely want to encourage you to talk to them on a break or during lunch. They have a lot of initiatives going on. That was just one of them, and they're really focused on the deck plate efficiency. So our next group I want to highlight is our carrier service life. And funny thing, not funny, but kind of funny. Vice Admiral Kaler talked a little bit about the 69 DePaya, which Puget, if you noticed, he said DePaya, not DePia. But it was a very challenging one. And I was the project engineer on it. And I do remember the story. I do remember the letters. But I also remember that this KSN it was named Remaining Service Life at that time, actually came out of the Ike DePaya because the growth work was astronomical. And even though we were late, we worked very hard and we were able to get through it and get her out. But this was one of the results of that Ike availability because there were so many issues. So now we've transferred and changed the name a little bit more, opened the breadth of it just a little bit more to Carrier Service Life. And our process master is Rex Santellan. And Rex, I'd like you to share a little bit about how you, talking about growth work, how you identify that growth work by using data to reduce unplanned work.
Thank you, Kelly. Like you said, my name is Rex Santellan. I'm the process master for Carrier Service Life. As I was kind of rehearsing this last night, I thought I had it pretty much down, but then Vice Admiral Kohler was on and he kind of threw a whole big loop on my discussion. Because the discussion is about unplanned work. But our main focus is the sustainment of carrier systems, components, and equipment. But as Vice Admiral Kohler mentioned earlier, unplanned work is a huge challenge to to get it down to a reasonable level during the availability. And it's a constant challenge to do that. So another area of our focus for our KSN is derived from the planning pillars efforts to reduce that unplanned work. So one of our initiatives currently is working directly with CPA to develop an enduring process to identify those drivers of new and growth work or unplanned work. Through data analytics, candidates will be selected for vetting and prioritizing through our KSN project focal points, our engineering codes, and other carrier community activities. Once the vetting and prioritizing process is completed, the item would be shared back to, shared with CPA again, with their ESWG group to conduct a deeper dive of the data to see if they could develop a solution to reduce that unplanned work before presenting it to the PICB to be potentially added to the work package. And then during project execution, the effectiveness of that particular solution can be confirmed through our KSN project focal points. Feedback would be forwarded back to CPA for further adjustments if necessary. So that's what we're doing with that particular initiatives. If there's any questions, I'm right over here at this end of the room. I'm here throughout the week, but we're really starting this initiative. We're really getting into it, and we're working closely with CPA on it.
Thank you, Rex. I appreciate it. All right. And, you know, one of the things that's amazing about the new transformation, digital transformation that we are experiencing, no matter how scary it may be, you know, when you combine that collective knowledge that we've been talking about with digital solutions, some magic can really happen. And things can get better if we do it right. So we have a lot of tools and resources that we already use that help drive process improvements. But with all the emerging technologies like AI that you learned about yesterday, we are just getting started to revolutionize the way we improve our processes. So I'd like to bring up to the stage our newest process master, Chris Frary, with the Project Planning Optimization KSN, and they are working on some pretty cool tools on how to accomplish this. So please welcome Chris.
Good morning, Carrier Team 1. So my name is Chris Frary. I am the new process master for the Project Planning Optimization KSN. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about artificial intelligence and machine learning. We definitely touched on it yesterday. That was eye-opening to myself because I've never actually used that chat GPT. And I actually asked it to write this speech, but it was too long and I won't make the time allotted, so I won't be using that speech. And that also was done on Capitol Hill yesterday during the interviews with the inventor when he was up on Capitol Hill. So I don't want to repeat what Congress has already done. So this community has decades of maintenance records in forms of technical work documents, material history, test failures, deficiency reports, shift reports. Now imagine if we could take those decades of maintenance requirements and put them up into a shared cloud that could be accessed by anybody at any time, underway at a shipyard in Japan. You know, so that way when a component is failed or needs a replacement or needs repair, we can go access that data, those decades of maintenance repairs, and come up with the best repair method. Utilizing artificial intelligence, machine learning, not only can we get the isolation requirements, we can identify the duration of the repair, become more predictable and optimize those planning products. We also can then identify and determine the resource requirements, the material required to do the replacement or the repair, and any potential contingent material that we weren't thinking about when we initially saw the issue that came up. Using machine learning and artificial intelligence, we can then derive and get into the test requirements and the retest requirements, and ultimately use that technology to improve our planning products, increase our quality, decrease our cost, and decrease the schedule required to make those improvements. So I am in the back corner all week. If there's any questions, please come see me. I look forward to speaking to anybody.
Thank you,
Appreciate the time.
Chris.
Thanks.
Yeah, hopefully you guys were able to catch Paul and Cindy's workshop yesterday, and I appreciate them doing that for us. We will have a video of it too later, but really exciting to see what could be possible. But, you know, it's really about using our tools to help us, not allowing our tools to dictate us. And so let's kind of always remember that as we're moving forward to figure out how can we use the things that we're given. Let's make sure that we're using them correctly. And PPO is going to be on the leading edge of that. So just a few more minutes. I want to talk about leadership. You know, it's a really important piece of this whole puzzle of how to implement process improvement effectively. Because leaders, and I'm talking to everyone in this room, you play a critical role in it. You know, some of the things that you are responsible for, and this kind of goes back to what Rear Admiral Midas talked about this morning, and I also heard Rear Admiral Downey speak about it yesterday. But, you know, you foster that culture of collaboration and innovation. And so we lead that charge. You help prioritize what digital and technology solutions we should go after and help remove those obstacles and keep our focus on what the goal is instead of just what the tool is. And you encourage your teams. And I love what Rear Admiral might have said this morning of ownership, making sure someone owns it and allow them to drive it. And so I think those are all critical things when we're doing process improvement. And we need to remember that as leaders and how we drive that culture and those conversations across the board and how we leverage the things that we can do as leaders. And so to look at our leadership expectations, which by the way, I want to make sure you all know, one, you were given in your brochures yesterday, one of these. So there'll be a test tomorrow. Kinda, I'm not really joking. And just FYI, it's also, sorry, I have too many things, in this handy dandy book that's on your table. Why do you think it's in the front of the book and not in the middle or the back? It's foundational, it's important, and it's before all the processes. The processes are very important and we need to understand them. But this is what is foundational to how we do our business successfully as a team. And Vice Admiral Kaler talked about it extensively when he was talking about leadership and when he really focused on the shipyard, which those were some amazing points. One team, one project. And so we need to take some lessons from here. So courage, servant's heart, contagious attitude, build high-performing teams. And tomorrow we're going to go through these in some workshops in the morning. So kind of giving you a little time to maybe study up, prepare, think about your answers, because everyone's going to be participating. Because really we are sponsoring those improvements. And we are helping lead the way to all these new initiatives and exciting things in our future. And it's really about having the courage. And if you remember the values behind Get Real, Get Better, one of them was courage. Is have the courage to get real, get better, because it's not always easy. So we are about done. I'm going to do one table discussion, and then we'll finish up and turn it over to Littleton so that he can close us out before we do workshops. So if you're at a table by yourself, I surely don't want you to talk to yourself. So feel free to join someone else. But think about some specific processes that we use regularly that could really benefit from improvement. And these are different conversations we're going to be using tomorrow. I'm going to pull you back in about 2 minutes, and then we'll just kind of close out from there, and then we'll go into our workshop discussion and a couple of little fun things. So go ahead and talk for a few minutes. All right, one more minute and then I'll bring you back. All right, can you hear my voice? If you can hear my voice, clap one time. If you can hear my voice, clap 2 times. One person heard my voice. If you can hear my voice, clap 3 times. If you can hear my voice, says, I'm hungry. Yeah, if you didn't say it, I'm not sending you to lunch. All right. I actually had more questions, but I ran out of time, but that's okay because we saved them. Any interesting insights just for maybe 1 or 2 tables? Table 18.
So a couple of things that we came up with were relooking at the nuclear ship vault process in terms of the timelines for when deliverables are provided to the shipyards, and especially in light of Ford coming online to Norfolk about how to support a ship that's got a lot more electronics, and the current way that we order material can tend to not support getting material delivered on time to the shipyards. And then the other thing, I guess, just tied to material ordering in general, like looking at all the challenges that the shipyards have with getting material on time and what can be done to improve that so it's not such a pinch point during execution.
That's good, thank you. And I would love, and I want to go to at least one more table. Anyone who has any good insights, if you could message me and Steven some of your just quick thoughts, because then I can kind of make sure I'm taking those back, because I'd like to learn from you guys. Someone else have any additional thoughts or comments? 22?
Make sure I'm not blowing you up again. Corporate applications for software, we moved to MSE, and if we need information in Puget about how a job was done in Norfolk, the only way we can realistically get that now is to have a point of contact or find somebody who knows somebody. If we could see each other's work, and like the person who just spoke, I forgot his name, sorry, was saying about having a corporate database for information like that, that is searchable. That would be huge.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. That is good. Any last ones? Please message me that too. Any other real quick ones on this side of the room? Well, that's why I said message me so I can, because I might not remember by the time I get off the stage, but I want to remember, because that was very good. Any other good ones back there? 13?
We talked about material availability, and I had the I don't know, good benefit of going to Piper a couple weeks ago, planning our performance review, and I was introduced to this thing called Comet, and I noticed that me being a material guy, I was the only material guy in the room, and Comet had supply chain management interface. And one of the challenges just addressed by this young lady across from me says when she orders material, she doesn't get any information until well after the fact. And my input is, wouldn't it be nice if we could identify whether material's available or not in the womb? Meaning, if Comet identifies when the planner says they need the part, we know whether it's. I know Chris identified AI to address what is the part, but we don't talk about whether or not the part is available or if it will become available. And that's one of our challenges on the 500 side of the material. We only know about it after it's planned, after it's identified as requirement. I would like to see it, options for next hire assembly or replacement or something like that, considered by the planner or the engineers when they identify it from the drawing. Say, hey, that part's not available. We really shouldn't plan it, or maybe we should look for an alternate instead of way after the fact, after it's, put in there, somehow get us the part, or we're going to kill you.
Thanks, Scott. That's good. Thank you. All right, again, please send me a message in Cvent if your table has other ideas so I can get them and compile them, because I will, and I will talk about them with our ESD, our PTL, and our KSNs. All right, so to bring us back together, you don't want to just go and rip out the sink, the toilet, the tub without planning, just like in our availabilities. It is really important to use that collective knowledge, that experience, that data, those insights, so that we can effectively plan our availabilities, our improvements, and our modernization. And tomorrow, we're going to talk a little bit about change management. I don't know why, whenever I say change management, it's just one of those things that sends a little shiver down my spine. It's not easy. So we can talk about it all day, we can work on improvements all day, but how do we actually implement it and put it in motion? So that'll be tomorrow's discussion. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it back over to our MC. He's going to provide you with imperative information before you go to lunch. Thank you.
Give her a round of applause. Y'all too worried about lunch. So how fast he gonna get us out of here? All right, so one thing is, let's go back to our elementary style of knowing where we need to be after lunch. And then while I'm doing that, I want all of the workshop leads to make sure you buy your mic, because I'm gonna make sure that you plug your workshop. So tables 1 through 20, 1 through 19, raise your hands. All right, tables 20 through 38. Nobody said raise your hands, but raise your hands. All right. All right, and then tables 39 through 59, clap your hands. All right, so our first workshop, the innovation pipeline. This is where I'm about to. I'll be telling the project suit, you can take my job. You can run my meeting if you want to. So for innovation pipeline, you had homework yesterday, and hopefully you did your homework. Raise your hand if you did your homework. Okay. That'll be on the 3rd floor, in the same room as the expo, correct? Yep. And you do need your homework sheet next door to where the expo was, but you'll still be going to the 3rd floor. And if you could, Liz and or John, plug that workshop right now. All right, all right. So then our next workshop, and that will be you guys right here. You'll be going up to the 3rd floor. All right, y'all good with that? Raise your hand if you're good with that. So you'll be there at 12:45. 12:45. You said 1:45? Oh, okay. Leveraging insights from commercial nuclear power industry. That's Mark Woodby. He'll be next door in the Norfolk 5 and 6. So that's right in the next classroom. That will be everybody from 20 to 38. So, Mr. Woodby. Yes, sir. You want to plug the workshop? They coming anyway. They will. All right. And that's you guys right here. You'll be in the next room. And then you guys have the easiest job, just to come back to where you were. All right. And that's going to be managing change with AWS and Deloitte. That's Chris Caniff right here in the main ballroom. Mr. Caniff. All right, thank you for sure. The ESC sponsors, I need you on the second floor during lunch in the Coral Sea boardroom, definitely in the second floor. So just make sure that you're there. Past that, workshops will start promptly at 12:45. So if you believe in the getting real, getting better part, if you believe in the leadership expectations, please be at the workshops on time. Come back in here for a special award ceremony afterwards and closing comments. That'll be following 3 rounds. So if you start upstairs, you'll come into the main ballroom. If you're in the main ballroom, you'll go to right next door. If you're right next door, you'll rotate upstairs. So I'm probably gonna see if I can, catch a couple people off guard, because yesterday, you guys did perfect. It was amazing. Nobody was in the hallways. It was flawless. So, and then the other thing to the presenters, you'll have support staff that'll come into the back of the room probably 5 minutes before the workshop should be over, just to give you a heads up. They'll just come in and they'll say 5 minutes, just to let you guys know, just a touch point, so that we stay on track to get out of here, or stay on time to make sure that we're all doing the right thing. Is that good? Can we all get a thumbs up? Go to lunch.